The man addresses the girl with beautiful pink hair named Rosalind, who obediently lowers her head. The ruler of the continent and judge of the 3 Seas, also known as the Invincible Legend, approaches her and wishes to receive an answer. The man is the master of the magic sword Eston. This is the emperor of the state of Atheus, Kahir. Looking closely at the girl, the young man asks what she wants in this life, as if he himself does not know. The beauty looks at the prince intently. She doesn't know if she has the right to express her true opinion, but receives a slight nod of the head. The blonde assures that everything is in perfect order. He wants to hear an opinion, which, even if he goes to court, will still be quite important. Not believing her ears, the maiden quietly asks again if this is true, hoping that at least this time she is not mistaken. The heroine worked hard in the novella, like His Majesty's secretary, just to survive. Every day the lady was pestered by aristocrats, as well as endless work. Now the danger has passed. The heroine has decided to live a quiet life, so she boldly declares that she wants to finish her work as a secretary. Not understanding what just happened, the man stands up, surprised, asking if it's true. He doesn't like what he's hearing. The young man got angry, which was clear even from his reaction. He quickly says that such a thing is impossible. Rosalind really doesn't understand what the problem is. She just followed orders and answered the question honestly. The young man grabs his interlocutor's chin and lifts it slightly. The maiden is thinking about something she shouldn't have anyway. With a wild look, the blonde reminds us of what was said from the very beginning. There is only one way to vacate this position. The girl quickly asks what she needs to do, but receives only a slight chuckle in response. She must die to stop working as a secretary. The next morning began with screams of horror from the maids, who in the morning noticed a woman sitting on the windowsill with the windows open. Hearing voices and sounds, the maiden turns, looking at her acquaintances with a frightened look. She does not know what to say as the last words. The maids carefully pass behind, taking slow steps. In one voice, the girls ask the miss to go back to her room and calm down. Instead of listening, the lady jumps, flying rapidly to the ground. This is just another dream from which you need to try to wake up. The girl lives in Seoul. She worked as the president's secretary for 6 years in order to help her brother and sister and look after them. Now the brunette understood that she had become as free as the wind. All the barriers that had held her back before had no meaning. The younger ones graduated, so the lady no longer had to live differently than she wanted. The woman quit almost immediately to take a little rest. That same night, the lady jumped out of the window because of the novel. She became interested in what she could read in her spare time. Throughout the book, the heroine sympathized more with the secretary than with his beloved girlfriend, who fell into the trap of love. The tyrant in the book often ordered a job that would take several days to be finished in one, because that was his desire. If something did not go as the prince would have liked, he would immediately draw his sword, as if he was always ready. It turned out that in front of such a formidable and great man, the secretary was like a fly before a hurricane. Watching the next chapter, the beauty yells at the hero for the way he treats a man. He doesn't know how hard it is to be a secretary. Carried away by reading, the girl did not notice how morning had come. Half asleep, she calls the director a strange man. When the lady opened her eyes, she did not immediately understand what was happening. She was uncomfortable sleeping because of the book at her side, which was very disturbing. Jumping up and sitting on the bed, Rosaline looks at the cover, realizing that it is the same book in front of her. This is how the lady ended up in the novel. Opening her eyes, she sees her parents, realizing that she is still in the book, which seemed like a dream that she wanted to get rid of. The girl had indeed moved, but she didn't know what about her other personality that remained there. The woman asks her daughter to drink as carefully as possible. The beauty realizes that she cannot leave everything as it is. Still, the situation is better than if the lady found herself in an unfamiliar place that she had not seen. It is necessary to quickly figure out how to return back to another world and past life. The heroine is not at all accustomed to what is happening around her. The maiden did everything she could to get back to her world. She tried poking at the beehive, eating poisonous berries that were supposed to help, and many other things. Each time, everything followed a familiar scenario. The girl opened her eyes in her room, realizing that she was completely fine. Even after the last attempt, the doctor was convinced that it was a miracle that Rosalind had eaten the grass and nothing had happened to her. Only after everything that had happened the girl realized with horror that she would not be able to die before the time allotted to Rosalind in the novella. A few days later, the lady came up with a plan of action. She acknowledged what was happening, hoping that it would help somehow. Since the lady can't return, she will live as the daughter of the Viscounts Barrett. The family has enough money, and the lady has a beautiful appearance, especially since here you can eat as much as you want. In addition to all this, the girl had a lot of outfits, which were replenished with new items almost on a constant basis. There are people around who treat Barrett like a princess from the palace. They took care of the girl, hoping for praise. That is why the lady decided to do something like this. She was happy to live a carefree life surrounded by her parents and family. The mother asks how the girl slept and notes that the new dress suits her very well. Her husband only nods in agreement. The lady also had a kind older brother who was ready to protect her. The heroine liked that absolutely everything was intended for her, both things and people. The most important thing is that Rosalind is not the main character, because her role is not that important. The girl's life promised to pass without worries and troubles, even if she was next to the main character. The world seemed perfect. For the blue-eyed girl, such conditions were quite suitable, so she did not try to find any more solutions. At this rate, days passed and then years. 5 years passed since everything happened, which the maiden spent with benefit for herself. The heroine was so busy with the sweet life that she completely forgot about one important detail. The servant called Roy because His Majesty was looking for a secretary. Looking at the family talking, the lady understands that they find this idea strange. From the first second, the girl herself did not remember the plot either. Escaping from the balcony, the beauty went to her room to open the chest, which had been sealed for a long time. First, it was necessary to get the key, which was in the nightstand. This was one of the most important for getting the publishing house. Grabbing the book, the beauty begins to frantically flip through the pages to understand where the moment with the secretary is. Roy couldn't approve Cahir's schedule. Because of this, the young man didn't keep his promise to Ella. He got furious and destroyed Barrett's entire family. The younger sister Rosalina also couldn't avoid the anger, which made the heroine flinch. The book quickly flies to the floor. Grabbing her neck from a sudden lack of air, the beauty tries to breathe as deeply as possible to calm down. This cannot be allowed. Meanwhile, work is in full swing at the imperial palace in Aethius. The prince asks if they have found him a new secretary as he asked for. The dark-haired guy looks down at the floor, admitting that the position is still open because there aren't that many candidates. The hero does not want to be buried under the rubble of work, so he wants them to find him at least someone suitable as soon as possible. The servant lowers his head and nods vigorously, promising that everything will be done. He will make every effort to make it happen. Sitting back on the throne, the blonde lets out a chuckle. Effort is not so important because he needs a good, worthwhile result. If the man doesn't find the person by the next day, he'll be doing piles of paperwork. This isn't the first time the palace has been overwhelmed with paperwork. That same night, Viscount Barrett's mansion was the place visited. A servant hears a knock and opens the door, asking who is there. There was a man behind the door who apologized for disturbing them at such a late hour. He was the Emperor's chief secretary, and his name was Derek. The hero has arrived to see the Viscount, so after a while they are sitting in the hall and drinking tea in complete silence. Trying to find reasons to start a conversation, the young man asks what brought the chief so late at night. The matter was urgent, so there was no time to delay. There was no one more suitable than Barrett's family, who were so far removed from power and connections. Roy will be appointed as the Emperor's secretary. This news sounds like a bolt from the blue, shaking the man. The image of the Emperor, who was considered one of the most cruel in recent times, immediately flashed through the brunette's mind. Immediately after the Crown Prince ascended the throne 6 months ago, he chopped off the heads of corrupt and incompetent aristocrats, causing him to be called a tyrant. The Emperor showed no mercy to the incompetent, believing that everyone should do their job properly. The Viscount did not understand why he had to send his golden bough and jasper leaf to be torn apart. He did not want to let his dear son go. Trying to justify himself, the young man assures that Roy has no experience, so he will not be able to serve the great Sun Prince with dignity. Their family will not be able to help. A man certainly values his child, but this is a good opportunity to introduce his family to everyone, showing what kind of children are growing up there. Roy is too soft. He has no intelligence, so it becomes clear that with such data he will not be able to hold out for a week. Helping an emperor with such a character is almost like a moth flying into a fire, gradually burning up from the smoke. The father cannot send his son to the palace. Fighting to the last, he asks if there are many famous and talented workers in the academy. Bowing his head as if slightly sympathetic, Derek repeats again that there is nothing to be done about it. All that remains is to accept reality. This is the emperor's decree. His Majesty does not have much patience, so a decision must be made as quickly as possible. The boy's eyes widen. He sees a golden badge that lands on the table. It's the mark of an imperial secretary, which means that things are serious. Apparently, the emperor was so confident in his choice that he even sent the badge along with the head of the secretaries directly to his estate. There is no opportunity to refuse. The Viscount asks to call Roy into the room, not even noticing the smile of Derek, who is clearly happy. The tea party continues until the man asks what the prince is like. He would like to give his son some advice before his journey. Kahir is literally perfect. In his circle, there are only capable people who do not know what a mistake is. The hero does not possess the mercy that many have seen. If there is a mistake in the notebook, the guy will not hesitate to take out his sword. Not long ago, a loud incident occurred. One of the guards got tired and fell asleep at his post, which led to many problems. Unable to stand this attitude towards work in general, the blonde sent the man to the front lines so that he would feel sorry for him. No longer finding the strength to listen to such things, the brunette tries to stop Derek's story. There is no need to worry, because everything will be fine if the Viscount's son does not make mistakes that will not be forgiven for nothing. The hero is not sure about what was said because perhaps it is not difficult only for a genius. Roy will try to do it almost impossible. The door finally swings open, causing the secretary to jump with joy. He is already looking forward to his future with days off. Standing at the entrance is none other than Rosaline Barrett, who curtsies. She has arrived in place of Roy, who was summoned. The father steps forward, asking what is going on. He thinks there has been a stupid mistake, because they should have called his son. There was no mistake. The girl smiles to smooth things over a bit. She wants to go instead of her brother to take responsibility. Trying to convince the assembled, the maiden reminds them that they received the same education. The heroine really wants this position. The words spoken almost stun the father. He does not want to believe that such a fragile person as Rosaline wants to become a tyrant's henchman. The girl's eyes have always seen only the good since childhood. The man tried, but he can't hide the other side of life from her forever. A picture of how the emperor would behave was forming in my head. It was impossible to allow my only daughter to be given to a man like him. While Derek was thinking about what to do, the Viscount managed to fall to the floor, screaming about how bad he felt, in order to attract attention. The servants immediately grabbed the gentleman, who had to be taken to the restroom. He could not stand all this commotion. As if not noticing everything that is happening, the secretary congratulates Lady Barrett. It is a great honor to serve the emperor. The hand holds out a small notepad. According to the man, it is a brief briefing on duties. Smiling, Derek tries to make amends for what happened, promising that the day after tomorrow he will send a carriage from the castle for the girl. Smiling back, the girl nods in agreement. She will look forward to the new beginning of her life. The girl did it only for their family. She avoided reading the original, but now that moment had come. The lady was not sure whether she had done the right thing in the past or whether she had already made many mistakes. But it did not matter so much. The story will have to be twisted somehow to stay alive. Rosalind promises that she will live a happy life and live to old age. Opening her eyes, the first thing the lady notices is not the sky and the sun, but the assembled family. Grasping his daughter's hand, the father begs her to tell him the reason for the decision. Her brother can go to the palace. Even Roy tries to make amends for the guilt he feels. He almost cries and begs not to do what he has planned. The girl is only 18 years old. This is the time she should debut in social circles. Something happened to her, but perhaps she just lacks new dresses. The man understands everything at a glance. He can afford it because he recently invested in a gold mine. The girl tries not to show it. Her father had invested in a fake mine, not a real one, and that was another big problem. In the original, the mine Barrett invested in turned out to be just an empty cave, which upset him. He was cheated out of his money. That's why Roy couldn't quit his job after the probation period and became a secretary. It all ended badly. It was because of the brothers' mistake that a series of different events began, which only brought with them more problems. What was about to happen could never be allowed to happen. The girl's decision would remain the same because she had decided to enter the palace. It won't be long enough for the family to forget what Rosaline looks like. She holds up 5 fingers, saying she'll be there for exactly 5 years. The mother, who had just been crying, quietly asks why such a specific number was given. The girl, of course, couldn't say that she would die in the book. Aristocrats usually get married after 20, so the girl lies about getting married at 23. Waving her hands, the maiden explains the benefits of being a secretary. She is good at this kind of thing, so she will go instead of her brother. It seems the family was convinced, so the beauty quietly exhales, feeling the secret relief that she managed to find. The imperial palace is discussing a new secretary. He has no connection with the Empress Dowager and is far from politics. The man praises his assistant. He did a great job, knowing that it was part of his job to find the right people. Tying the pendant, the guy is already turning around when Derek offers to hand over the royal crown. In response, there is only a nod. There's a knock at the door. A new secretary has arrived, who is still called a trainee, since they haven't hired him yet. Raising his finger, the servant says syllable by syllable that this is the new secretary. He will not accept any other answer. His Majesty will not expel the new arrival. The young man understands perfectly well that if he continues in this spirit, he will reach the point of exhaustion. The blonde sits down on the throne. He nods, asking to invite the secretary to his room as soon as possible. The door swings open. A girl appears in the passageway, greeting the emperor and introducing herself. The anger is reflected on the face almost instantly. The young man thinks that this is some kind of evil joke that is worth nothing. Turning to Derek, the emperor asks who it is. The servant has already repeated more than once who exactly has arrived and does not intend to do so again. Obviously, the guy doesn't like this state of affairs. He frowns, trying to think of what to say. Virgo looks up at her interlocutor with a sad expression. She notices the mood changes, but she doesn't know for sure what exactly is wrong. After a moment of silence, the prince descends the steps and heads towards the arriving lady. It is worth recognizing because the young man is simply flawless. He is too handsome, and the girl regrets that she laughed when the book talked about his beauty. Looking straight into the eyes of his interlocutor, the blonde says that he hates women. This makes the girl perk up. Derek understands that he needs to stand up for both himself and the lady, so he says that this is the first time he has heard of something like this. It seems that the heroine misheard, because, as we know, the novel has a rating of 19+. He hates arrogant people, so he asks for an internal investigation. What was said out of the blue was not supported. They could find out that Barrett had illegally invested in a gold mine. Deciding to ask questions, the lady begs to be told what exactly is wrong so that she can fix it. I really want to hear the reason. The girl wants to resolve the whole situation as quickly as possible. Whatever it is, Rosalind promises to fix it, because she knows in her head how important this place is. The maiden did not believe the hero's words at all. He says how he hates women, but as far as we know, this is absolutely not true. Looking at the girl, the guy seems to hesitate. He examines her facial features and curls, trying to find a worthy reason. The whole problem is that the heroine is more beautiful than the emperor. This can't be like the people in the palace. The heroine hangs her head, frozen. She doesn't immediately know how to react, because as far as she knows, the novel says nothing about this. Chuckling, the blonde thoughtfully asks how the lady is going to correct such a flaw, because it's something she wants to look at. There is a wind in her head, but even so, the lady understands that she has no right to give up, so that everything goes not according to plan, but according to the plot. Smiling, the heroine thanks him for such a high assessment. According to her, there is no comparison with the emperor. The girl diligently showers the man with compliments, talking about his nobility and grace, which are absolutely irreplaceable. Derek, standing behind, tries to encourage the future secretary with gestures. There is still very little left to make an effort. Rosaline, too, tries to tell herself that she can do what she has planned. All that remains is to do her best. The conversation turns to great achievements, of which there is a whole list, but the list never changes. The heroine cannot compare with the shining sun of the empire, which will always shine for all the people around. Asking if the lady really wants to become a secretary, the young man receives a positive answer. She wants to do it for the empire. It will take some effort, but Rosalind speaks many languages and can also fulfill any request perfectly. The blonde chuckles. He's interested in this being true, so he nods in agreement. The girl tries to put pressure on him to end the conversation, repeating again that she will do anything. She is ready for it. Addressing the man, the Emperor asks Derek to vacate and allocate one room next to his chambers. The blonde gives Rosalind 1 week to show how useful she can be. There is no limit to the joy, and it is noticeable. The lady thanks His Majesty for what he has done for her. Bowing her head, the girl thinks only about how lucky she is that everything went exactly as she wanted. The secretary's joy knew no bounds, because now he would not work around the clock. Left alone with the Emperor, he asked him about something. Leaning closer, the young man asks if the prince really hates women. He didn't know if it was true, so he decided he needed to find out. Without looking up from his papers, the young man nods reservedly. It is true, which makes the servant even more surprised. Everything was better before, but it happened from today. If girls are beautiful, it doesn't mean they are bad. Putting down the sheets of paper that were filled in, the guy only says that he hates what could cause him a headache for the rest of the day. The only suspicious thing is that Rosalind perfectly matches all of His Highness's preferences, making one wonder if everything is okay. It is hard to believe that everything has come together so well, so the Emperor asks to collect all the information about the Barrett family. Leaving the office, the girl finally exhales. It was as if she was walking on a knife edge when she tried to stay in this castle in her position. The maid greets the girl, her name is Rui, and she promises to tell about everything around for the convenience of the lady herself. Smiling, the girl greets the maid and asks her to take care of her. She is used to good people surrounding her. The maiden promises to show the palace, but after a while the heroine is already tired. It seems as if the corridors have no end or edge. Looking down, the lady dreams of changing her shoes to comfortable work shoes and stops Rui, who immediately turns around. Shifting from foot to foot, the girl says that she is not used to the new shoes, so she asks to take a short break. The woman is visibly nervous, asking to do it later, even if it hurts. They must leave the third palace, and the lady immediately realizes that this is the Empress's chambers. They found themselves in an inconspicuous building behind the main hall, which had been built specifically for the woman. His mistress is Kahira's stepmother, the Dowager Empress Angela Monica Belluage. She is the Emperor's main enemy, who tormented him until his death. The prince was called a tyrant wherever he went, but compared to Angela, he was a mere trifle and a kind man. The woman literally devours people. Through her efforts, those closest to Kahir were executed after slandering. It must be admitted that meeting such a person did not sound like a pipe dream. Rui and the secretary set out again. Of course, the adventures were not over. A little further down the corridor, the lady met the Empress, who began to be sarcastic from the very beginning. Not wanting to start a rude conversation or conflict, the lady curtsies to greet the woman. Ignoring Rosalind, Angela turns to Rui. She dared to enter the third palace without permission. The girl starts to apologize tearfully. It's simple because the maid serves Kahir, so they take it out on her even if it's a common corridor. Leaving the other lady alone, the lady turns to Barrett. It's the first time she's seen someone like that, which means she came unnoticed. Trying to ignore the book at her chin, the heroine introduces her first and last name only to smile afterwards. The woman snorts. She hasn't heard of such a family or what exactly the girl's family does to make her insignificant. As is known, the lady's father bears the modest title of Viscount, and the family's position and wealth are incomparable with that of dukes and earls. The Barrett family has something much more important than all the wealth. They have education and honor, which cannot be changed. Centuries of devotion to the imperial family also takes its place. The woman knows nothing, but dares to speak condescendingly. What happened won't last forever. It's worth at least trying to explain something or even resist. The girl offers her condolences on the tragedy that happened to the queen's older brother. The anger is noticeable because it was Kahir who took his life. Trying to contain herself, the girl asks what Rosalind's job title is. The heroine is the new secretary of His Majesty, so she is going to carry out all his orders and everything else. The woman can't take it anymore. Barrett thinks she's hit the jackpot and can now trust Kahir freely, which isn't even close to true. Putting on a pity concert, the lady whines that the son she raised with love allows his people to treat her like that. The maiden deserves to die for her bad manners, because if the emperor finds out what was done to his mother, he will definitely be very upset. Derek is running at full speed, and then he yanks the door open. They have a problem that needs to be solved quickly. The servant will be in trouble because the man finally found time to rest, but for some reason he was only interrupted. The brunette doesn't seem to listen to the threat. He talks about the new secretary, whom His Highness disliked because of his beauty. The girl encountered the Empress, who finds fault with the people of Kahira for all sorts of little things, and then punishes them for nothing. The man is almost in tears, asking for help, because he only recently, with such difficulty, finally found a suitable secretary. An image of a beauty flashes through my head, who seemed to want to gently hush up the whole situation. However, everything will turn out the opposite, because the lady will suffer a defeat. Most likely the Empress will put her whole soul into this, so all that remains is to change everything so as not to see it. A slight silence hangs in the hallway. It seems like a calm before a storm that is about to begin. Turning to the woman, the lady asks if she and the prince really have such a relationship. It is hard to believe that it is true. The maiden would never dare to insult the Empress, but asks her to take back her words about her love for His Highness. The conversation had gone down the wrong track, which is why the man most likely wouldn't care how the secretary spoke to the Empress, which means there was no reason to change anything. The redhead can't take it anymore. She doesn't understand how the girl dared to say something like that right to her face, so she swings her arm sharply. The girl does not move away. Understanding what exactly has happened, the beauty only tries to close her eyes so as not to see everything that is happening around her. Just then the emperor appeared. He stopped the stepmother by grabbing her wrist so that no harm could be done. Looking at the girl, the guy, smiling, confirms the words of the beauty. No one said anything bad or wrong. Instead of immediately starting to swear, the girl makes the men let go of her hand, which was slowly starting to tingle. The hero takes Rosaline's side because she speaks the truth to his face. Obviously, the lady comes from a family with great secretaries. Not wanting to listen to any excuses, the young man asks the girl to repeat everything she had already said. There is no love or anything like that between these people, only purely business relations. Even if the lady had treated the Empress with disdain, no one would have been upset. There is silence. The girl literally begins to rush about, because on her first day she has disgraced herself. Tomorrow she will be deservedly thrown out of the castle. The woman steps back, realizing that she should say something, but is interrupted by the prince who started it all. The young man's honest secretary said nothing bad that could harm the situation. The guy promises to punish the lady for the commotion that has arisen. The madman smiles because of the girl who seemed to have just arrived at the castle. The maiden steps back, fanning herself. Rosalind may be needed more alive than when something is done to her. She may be useful. Both groups left the corridor. Stopping on the street, the man turns to the lady and asks why she needs this position. Thinking for just a second, the girl says that she wants to enjoy the privileges and glory of serving the son of the empire. Not believing the words spoken one bit, the young man, in a more menacing tone, asks again why the lady needed the position of secretary. The girl even managed to resist Angela, which is becoming strange. She may be a specially sent person. Gathering her thoughts and willpower, the maiden quietly says that she came instead of her brother. It was the best decision. This seems strange because the truth was told straight to the face. Even the servants are a little surprised. This will pose a challenge for the internship, but the worries are dispelled as soon as the prince bursts into laughter. There was nothing funny, so the guy shuts up and throws the crown towards the secretary. He asks why the girl decided to replace her brother. According to the stories, Roy is in poor health, so the beauty arrived in his place, caring about how exactly he feels. Patience is almost gone. If the girl lies even one more time, the emperor will not give a broken penny for her life. The girl doesn't know what to do and how exactly to part with the truth. There are more servants behind her who slightly confuse the heroine. Noticing the strange reaction, the king orders Derek and Rui to take 10 steps back. The lady does not wish to voice the reason in front of the servants, who might then strongly condemn her for it. This was understandable, because the secretary's behavior spoke for itself. Derek was only concerned about how long Kahira had been concerned about this. Rui pulled the man aside, leaving the pair completely alone to discuss what had previously been almost taboo. Virgo thanks him for his concern, but moves closer to say what she has to say. She looks straight into the blonde's eyes. In fact, the girl's brother is a bit stupid, so she decided to go instead of him so as not to upset the ruler. Not hearing what exactly is being said, Derek, of course, falls into a stupor. He knows that he will follow such gestures. The maiden touched the emperor, so she will most likely regret it now when she sees the sword in her face. The blonde is silent, and then, instead of reacting differently, he bursts out laughing again. He almost clutches his stomach. The girl is well aware that she came here to go to the end, so there will be nothing left but to lie to the end with honest eyes. The young man stops to catch his breath. The new secretary seems like a funny person to him. There is something wrong with the emperor because he reacts in such a way that makes the beauty almost cry, but soon she hears his voice. The woman did one of the most noble things for her family because she cares about them. Bowing her head, the lady thanks the king for his kindness and mercy, which he has never seen before. Asking Rosalind's name, the blonde smiles one last time, saying that from that day on she is his secretary. He will have to try. The girl, without delay, extends her hand and shakes it in return. She will be glad to try her best. Scratching her neck in awkwardness, the lady nevertheless decides to ask how exactly the young man realized that she was lying to him. Already opening his mouth to say something, the emperor notices the bird, so he abruptly pushes the princess aside. The heroine's cheeks turn very red. She, trying to object, understands that they are too close, but she herself does not know what to say. The servants are even more surprised than before. Both want to ask in one voice what exactly is going on here. The guy points to the bird. The woman almost embarrassed herself on her first day, which would not have gone according to plan. As it turned out, the whole reason was on the surface. When a lady lies, she starts biting her lips. The hand automatically reaches to the mouth to cover it quickly and not appear to those who are a little frightened by such a reaction. From now on, the lady promises to be careful. In order for the empress to calm down, the maiden is obliged to write down all the achievements during the war. Time is given until the next day. It's almost impossible, which is a little scary. It will be much later for a woman than some letter of apology. Turning to leave the garden, the young man merely says that he expects good results. Rui watches the couple go. She was very nervous, but it seemed like there was a spark between them. It seems to be true because the spark begins to ignite, even if it takes a long time and is slow. Every day began the same way. First, the new secretary was introduced to the inhabitants of the castle, and then to everyone else. Rui wonders what happened. It seemed to her that a spark flared up and then disappeared somewhere very quickly, leaving no trace behind. Derek, lying opposite the brunette, carefully tucks her hair, joking that she ran away to them. The lady just feels sorry for Rosaline, who spent 5 years not dating anyone except for work. Thanks to her hard work, Derek has time for a personal life. The girl was called many names. Some considered her a workhorse, a soulless puppet, or even the emperor's shadow. Tears start to flow from her eyes. The lady has lived her entire life alone and will die in complete solitude no matter what. Finishing another report, the heroine puts the paper aside. She can't help but be proud of her work. Looking out the window where it had already gotten dark, the beauty sighed heavily. It had gotten dark again outside earlier than before, but she had finished too late. There was absolutely no strength left, which made the beauty fall down on the table. She just wants to sleep and forget. The girl has been working as His Majesty's secretary for 5 years by her own choice. She managed to change the original story. Roy got married and became a happy father who was not at all affected by the problem discussed in the book. The fraud case involving the gold mine was quickly hushed up thanks to connections, so the heroine's parents are also living peacefully. For some reason, the lady hoped for a good outcome for herself. She was still alive, which meant it was worth going home. The only thing that worried the girl was that the main character still had not appeared in this novel. Opening the notebook, the lady is going to write down everything that has changed. The main character is still not there. The reason is that there have been no banquets for a long time. The author compared the main character of his novel, Ella Paulos, to a beautiful lily that had no equal. In the original story, Ella and Kahir met at his birthday party by chance. It was love at first sight, so after that the whole story was just beginning. They couldn't fall in love if they hadn't even met yet. Anger is out of control. Virgo doesn't know if there is any point in trying to push them apart, but he understands that perhaps the lady doesn't exist in this world at all. Running her finger over the lion's face, the girl jumps back. She almost has a panic attack because of what she saw. The heroine realizes that now this responsible role is on her. She simply has to bring Ella and Kahir together. Before knocking on the prince's door, the lady wonders when she should start looking for the heroine. His Highness doesn't like receptions, so he will try to make excuses. Opening the door, the lady enters, greeting the prince with good morning and also addressing the maids. In fact, it is not kind. The man, just like the subjects, is facing a difficult week. While writing something down, the heroine asks if the blonde would like to take a bath in the hot springs after lunch. The lady has thought of everything in advance. You need to come up with your ideas when Kahir is in a good mood. Throwing the sheets of paper aside, the young man sighs. No matter how many times he makes comments, the aristocrats still bring all sorts of trash. It's not all that bad, but the guy's patience also has an end, which seems to be very close. The maids talk quietly among themselves, confirming how good the couple looks. The maiden tries to offer the crown, which they refuse to wear, and does not leave the prince alone, who tries to escape. Looking at the cute big eyes like a fawn, the young man gives in. He can't resist something that will be good for him. Bowing, the boy waits for the legal attribute to fall off his head. Rosalind doesn't keep him waiting long. The couple is too cute. They seem to be discussing work issues, but at the same time they act like people who love each other. Aristocrats line up just to talk to the lady. She just gives them advice because some are afraid to approach the prince. Before visiting the emperor, it is best to forget about how everything is happening and talk to someone who knows the situation. The young man smiles as he adjusts the girl's hair. Barrett always lives up to his high expectations without asking for anything in return. The beauty is very worried that the guy is called a tyrant, and that is why many aristocrats behave this way. A man just has a fiery temper that gets in the way of everything. This does not make a person a tyrant. An incorrect assessment of the state of affairs in the country interferes with its management, so the lady tries to fix everything. The conversation quickly ends as the couple heads with the others to the hall to meet the aristocrats. From the very beginning, everything went wrong. The man begs for mercy because he committed a mortal sin, causing no emotion on the young master's face. The aristocrat was blinded by money, so he secretly passed information to an enemy country. Rosalind almost screams because she asks the boy to admit to receiving the money, pay 10 times the amount received and give up half of his lands. The guy is not going to hesitate. He intends to kill him right now, but in return the count finally remembers everything and asks him not to do anything. Secretary Barrett said that it would save lives, but His Majesty does not listen, so the girl tries to say something. The girl starts talking again, so the blonde has no choice but to listen to her. The Marquis deserves punishment for his actions, but death is too easy. Blood could stain the marble, and that cannot be allowed. The proposal is to strip the young man of his position, confiscate his property, and hand over his lands to the Empire. The title will have to be taken away too. There is nothing more unfortunate than an aristocrat without any money or power. The man, hearing this, rushes forward, begging not to do it. He cannot come to terms with his future fate. Without listening to the cries and screams, the boy orders the aristocrat to be taken away. He does not want to see such a picture. The rest of the aristocrats at the table are completely silent. I wouldn't want to end up in someone else's place. Nothing new, so pretending everything is fine, the blonde sits down on the throne. The meeting should continue exactly as usual. Remaining in the throne room with the emperor, the maiden works on papers, but is interrupted, asking if she can bring them later. The girl still insists because she cannot concentrate on work when she is being stared at. The more the young man looks at Rosalind, the more he is amazed at how such a kind soul always finds good excuses. Looking at the lady gets boring, so the blonde calls out to the servant to start another conversation. Leaning on his hand out of boredom, the young man asks, should he start a war at least once, because he is simply bored. This, of course, does not suit the main character. She does not understand why such a proposal was suddenly made. In the last 5 years, His Majesty has fought in 3 wars. The servants are still cleaning up the aftermath, so no one should be bored. Without changing his views, the hero merely notes the fact that he is not bored making fun of the secretary. The blonde man nods, smiling. They'll finish, and then they can go their separate ways. The papers are still pretty important. Blue Eyes nods in agreement. The mission was successfully completed, so now the neighboring countries are in perfect order. The girl does not understand why the prince has been acting so strange lately. He is always teasing the beauty. The man himself does not notice how he is much further immersed in the abyss of his thoughts. He wonders how things are with Rosaline. The girl would like to know more about what is happening, but every step makes the story more and more confusing. Lately, the emperor makes everyone fall for his beauty, but at the same time, he behaves strangely. I remember that the rating of the novel is high. Only one thought comes to mind. The emperor has been single for the last 5 years, and the maiden has somehow forgotten about it. He has needs. In the original, the man occasionally dated the lady, but after Ella, that ended. Virgo decides to quickly arrange a reception for the couple to meet. The emperor, coming up from behind, asks what the lady is discussing with herself, to which she cleverly changes the subject. He asks for something to drink. For some reason, the sight of the young man made the beauty blush. She turns away, not understanding why. The lady announces that next month there will be a celebration of the Empress's birthday. They have avoided it for 5 years, but not this time. The blonde frowns. In the morning they repressed a person close to Azella, but he doesn't even remember who it was. The man is reminded that it was the Marquis of Jalance, who had connections with enemies from another country. The guy didn't change at all. As usual, he quickly threw the completely unnecessary information out of his head. If this is the Empress's man, the young man tries to catch him again and arrest him. It won't work. The incident was good because it made the woman nervous. This time, a banquet is needed to improve the reputation. The blonde agrees that they need a banquet. Looking at the lady, the hero promises that she can do anything. Starting to write down the necessary preparations in a notebook at the speed of light, the lady promises that she will prepare everything. Another day came to an end. The trio gathered in the office, working overtime. Something had to be done about this. Finally, the emperor let everyone go. Derek ran away first, probably because he had a date with Rui. Already getting ready to leave the room, the young man asks why the secretary is not leaving. He would like to put the papers in order. While shuffling the sheets, the girl accidentally cut herself. She must have been too tired lately, considering that she had to work a lot because of the reception. Turning to His Majesty, the lady asks if there is anything urgent. If necessary, she will do everything. Instead of saying anything, the young man silently approaches and takes the girl's hand, looking at her finger. The guy promises to kill the one who supplies the paper, which causes a reaction in Rosalind, who is already unaccustomed to this. The poor supplier did not please the man, who, as usual, lost his temper. There was definitely something wrong with him lately. Looking at the girl's hands, the question itself comes to mind. Her hands are too small, with which she carries stacks of paper every day. The girl doesn't try to answer anything in response, just looking around, as if hoping that they will leave her alone as quickly as possible. Jumping back, the blonde coughed awkwardly. He had been holding the secretary's hand for too long, which seemed strange. A delegation from Ginsburg will arrive tomorrow. The lady promises that even if she finishes late, she will still prepare everything. The man freezes as if he has heard the biggest lie of his life. He steps back. The hero didn't mean it at all, so now he realizes that he made a big mistake. He insistently asks the lady to go to bed. The girl falls on the bed, wondering what she missed. The guy is suspiciously angry for no reason. Since reality diverges from the plot, it is difficult for the beauty to predict the future. She thought she knew Kahir very well. Now the heroine is no longer so sure of what she thought. The emperor is changing a lot. A little earlier, an incident occurred in the corridor that only confirmed the guesses. The lady met the prince in the corridor in her pajamas. The young man knew that the secretary would not go to rest, so he literally began to push the lady towards her bedroom. Opening the door to the room, the blonde pushes his acquaintance inside. She needs a good night's sleep. Taking away the sheets of paper with assignments, the young man promises that he will wake Rosalind up so that there will be no need to jump up in the morning. The sleep command didn't work because now Barrett is sitting on her bed, not understanding what's wrong with the man. A lot had indeed changed recently, but the heroine could not answer the question of what exactly it was. The lady was very tired. It was impossible to deny it, but sleep still wouldn't come. The whole night passed, and the heroine still couldn't fall asleep. This is what showed her that it was all over now. Rui asks Rosalind to come out as soon as she gets ready. Kahir still came personally to raise his friend, so now they are sitting in the main room working. The maiden could not even think that yesterday's words were not an empty sound for the prince, because in the end he did everything. The delegation, which is about to leave, bids farewell politely. There was enough work for this day, so they will be escorted. Finally, it's over. Rosaline exhales and leans against the door on the other side. It seems that the lady did not see her reflection in the mirror, but Kahir noticed it. The lady looks like a ghost because of the preparations for the banquet, and the young man does not even know that she did not sleep last night. Turning to Derek, His Majesty asks why he blames everything on the secretary, although this is not at all the case. All afternoon meetings will be cancelled and Barrett will go to rest. She looks more tired than she appears. The girl is about to follow the prince, but he quickly stops. This time he leaves all alone. The couple left in the office stand looking at each other in surprise. Such incidents have happened for the first time. The emperor has been irritated by something other than Rosalind lately. Perhaps he is simply tired of preparing for the banquet. The brunette doesn't intend to spoil the secretary's performance, although of course he thinks that the problem lies somewhere else. Going to her room, the lady first of all applies makeup. She tries to hide all traces from the night. Perhaps after such a transformation the guy will say something nice or that the lady looks pretty good. The day arrived when the banquet and birthday of the Dowager Empress was planned. The man starts preparing from the very beginning. Sitting on the couch, he goes through the outfits that could be ideal. Entering the office, the blue-eyed girl does not immediately understand everything. The atmosphere is, to put it mildly, not simple. His Majesty examines the dresses without saying what exactly he is doing. There is absolutely no time for that. Without paying any attention to the words, the young man asks Rosaline to stand up straight. They can't try on all the clothes, so this is the only option left. The maid obediently remains in place. The dress that was chosen seemed to please even the maids around her. Asking Rui what's going on, the lady finally gets her answer. The selection of dresses is being made for the secretary. It all seems obvious. The man didn't mean to offend anyone, but going to an event in such a dress doesn't seem like the best idea. The heroine's clothes seem quite comfortable to her. She doesn't see anything wrong, so she frowns. Today the lady will dance with the prince. According to tradition, everyone must dance with their partner, and his partner will be Rosalind. This doesn't suit the heroine. This time, Ella has to show up, and this could interfere with everything. The girl doesn't know what to do, because the main character's jealousy could become a fatal mistake. If a lady dances with the son of the empire, she might fall into a stupor, but this will not happen. The young man doesn't even suspect what he's talking about. According to the laws, everything must happen, and the hero will dance with Paulos. Throwing the dress forward, the ruler asks to try it on. If Rosalind is wearing it, the hero will not even be upset. The lady still has no time for all this. There is a lot of work that has accumulated, so nothing can be neglected. Switching to angry tones, the emperor orders to do what he says. You must not forget your place and privileges. Taking off his shirt, the hero asks Barrett to leave the room. It becomes clear why he asks this. There is not enough strength to move. Blue eyes turn scarlet, but the joke about her looking at something like that brings her back to consciousness. The evening came rather quickly. The banquet is truly luxurious, only because the right people tried hard enough to make it look as it should be. Although banquets had not been held before, the result was simply wonderful. A lot of work had been done on this. The food was brought from abroad, and the glasses were made by the best masters of their craft, which, of course, was pleasing. Despite all the wonderful things that had been brought to the palace, the atmosphere did not seem the best to be in. The empress sits on her throne, carefully sipping a drink from a glass, while the sun looks in a completely different direction. Turning away even further, the boy calls Derek to him, persistently asking where Rosalina is. Asking His Majesty who he is looking for, the lady reminds him that the event was created for her. Sighing indifferently, the young man asks everyone to enjoy themselves, while at the same time congratulating him on his birthday. The same strange, tense atmosphere remains in the hall and does not change at all. That's why the emperor doesn't like banquets. I want to leave already, at least for the duration of the dance, but even the secretary has disappeared somewhere. The girl is very late. Surely the prince has been looking for Rosalind for a long time, but she is afraid to admit it. The idea of Kahir's first reaction does not seem so cheerful. We need to go even faster. Entering the hall, the lady immediately notices light hair, light green eyes which make it clear who is in the distance. A cute little nose and a thin waist, an image that reminds one of a noble deer. Of course, this is Ella from the novel. The main character finally appeared, which made the beauty quickly get into a good mood. The couple meets eyes. For some reason, instead of a smile, the heroine gets an angry look in her direction, as if she did something. The girl can't believe that she was just looked at with malice. This doesn't seem like how things should be. It doesn't matter because today the king and Ella will finally meet. The moment will be just right. Calling the servant for the fourth time, the young man again asks where Rosalind, whom he has not seen for a long time, has suddenly disappeared to. Interrupting the conversation, the lady at the side reminds us that the dance music will soon start, which means it's time to dance. The man's partner didn't come. There is no law that prohibits anything, but this doesn't change anything. A girl follows into the distance of the hall, attracting the attention of everyone around her, which is undoubtedly pleasant. Smiling, the Empress says that she wishes to introduce His Highness to an interesting lady who can serve as the best company. Ella Paulos walks forward, bowing and curtsying. She is about to greet those around her. Calling the young man the son of the empire, the blonde introduces her name. She is from the line of Count Paulos, who is her father. The girl suits His Majesty, although the maiden is not from a wealthy family. Such a choice seems ideal. The secretary standing near the exit smiles. The couple has finally met, so now everything is exactly as it should have been from the very beginning. The couple looks into each other's eyes. A kind smile appears on Ella's face, which is capable of attracting anyone's attention. Now that the main characters have met, Barrett's work here is done. She can choose what she wants to do. For some reason, a strange feeling settles in the chest. Perhaps the lady is simply tired of preparing the banquet, or perhaps it is something else. Derek, who appeared out of nowhere, runs to meet the secretary. The emperor has been looking for the girl for a long time. She's his dance partner, so it's important. It's not a threat because the prince just found himself a partner. The brunette doesn't understand what is being discussed. This is important because otherwise His Majesty will simply lose his temper. Looking at what is happening near the throne, the lady asks Derek to make sure that His Highness will no longer look for a lady like her. The couple continues to look into each other's eyes as if frozen in time. A vacuum has formed around them. This can't be true, or at least the secretary doesn't want to believe it. He won't admit it, even if you look at it that way. The first dance has begun. Derek was going to dance it with Rui, so the lady quickly lets him go. The man runs away, knowing how important the first dance is for girls. It was Rosaline's first banquet, but there was no point in dressing up. Now that the main character has appeared, the lady will announce her decision to stop working. The long-awaited life that the woman had been postponing for so long would begin. There was no longer any point in thinking about what would happen in the future. It seems like a positive note, but for some reason there is only emptiness in the heroine's chest, as if someone took something important away. It's not usually that hard. The girl feels lonely for no reason, which makes her doubt. Her thoughts are interrupted by His Majesty, who, appearing out of nowhere, presses the girl against the wall, almost screaming. The necessary music will start soon, so it is worth taking responsibility, otherwise Derek will regret it. Holding out his hand, the hero offers to dance quickly. It is strange that Kahir is not next to Ella now. The face turns slightly red. Despite common sense, the lady thinks only about what is happening here and now. People around turn around just to look at the couple, who begin to twirl in a dance like birds. The young man is sure that he wants to dance, so he just needs to enjoy the moment without thinking about everything around him. Rui and Derek can't believe it's finally happened. The couple looks so harmonious, which makes you wonder if they need anyone else. Looking across the room, the Dowager Empress angrily grits her teeth. The prince's partner was Rosalind. His Majesty is a little embarrassed. Explaining that it will get better with time, the heroine tries to convince Ella not to give up. The blonde smiles to hide her mood, which has deteriorated. She is worried, but everything is fine. A person like the sensitive Lady Ella would definitely suit Kahir. It just takes the right moment. Turning away, the girl clutches the hem of her dress. What happened is impossible because they were destined to fall in love at first sight. Instead of what was destined to happen, His Highness is whirling in a dance with Rosalind. Turning around, the maiden notices that the prince dances well. There would be nothing he could do worse than he should. It's different from what I've seen before, but a genius doesn't need training. Seeing it once is enough. The girl's reaction is a little rude, but still does not interfere with the true intentions that are moving forward. Laughing nervously, the secretary tries to convince the prince that this is not so as not to seem rude. It seems that Kahir is in a good mood. This does not happen every day, so the lady is lucky. The empress is boring her eyes into the lady again. For the last 5 years, she has been ruining all the plans she manages to come up with. No one knows what will happen next, but Azella has a new plan. She just needs to make Ella Paulos the new empress. After that, no one will be able to stop what happens next. She will control everything around her. Looking around, the girl says that she is a little upset. This is her first dance at the first banquet, but for the young man, it is not so. Freezing, the blonde simply answers lightly that this is the first time even for him. This is not true, so the truth must be told. The girl has followed the emperor for the last 5 years, to the banquets too, and has seen all the ladies with whom Kahir danced. Rosalind forgot one very important thing. The guy asked the lady to dance first, so this is the first real dance at the banquet. It was nice to dance. Now that it's all over, the young man has pleased the empress, so he's going to leave. The maiden must look after the banquet. When it is time for the fireworks, the beauty will send someone to fetch the emperor to his chambers. If the girl stays, then the prince will do the same. He must make sure that she does not make any mistakes. The conversation ended rather quickly, but the heroine can't shake the feeling that someone is drilling a hole in her. It was Ella. The blonde came up behind her unnoticed, looking menacingly at the girl who didn't understand what had happened. If the main character has arrived, then this is a sign to stay away. Going out into the garden, the lady sits down on a bench. She got tired quite quickly because of her work and everything that had piled up. That strange look was still in my head. It was as if Ella was hinting that the lady had done something wrong. The heroine worked day and night to make them meet, but in the end everything turned out exactly like this. Her thoughts are interrupted by someone's presence. Turning sharply, the beauty notices Paulos. The girl is nearby even after Rosalind carefully avoided her. Getting up from her seat, the woman heads for the exit. The blonde must have come here to relax alone. Almost leaving the garden, the lady is stopped. Ella grabs Barrett's hand, showing her bad manners. The girl has nothing to say. Even after the question, she shakes her head looking depressed. There is no need to pretend because the heroine is the person who knows absolutely everything. Blue Eyes has been reborn. It doesn't come to mind how exactly the lady could have found out about this. There is nothing surprising about this. The blonde is exactly the same, but a little different. Not so much different. The couple needs to talk. Too much has happened lately. Not knowing what her interlocutor is up to, she starts shouting that the Empress's place belongs to her. Secondary characters have no right to butt in wherever they want. There was a misunderstanding. Virgo is rooting for the couple Kahira and Ella, so on the day of the banquet, something went wrong. It wasn't just a coincidence. The couple were glued to each other from the first dance, which made the blonde sad. You don't want to die because of the main character's jealousy, so you should find a time and place to talk. His Majesty must drink tea in the bowet, and since tomorrow is Tuesday, it must be mint tea. Tomorrow the girl promises to visit the tea party. History will return to normal. Blue Eyes doesn't even have time to object. She blinks in surprise, not quite understanding. The heroine leaves the palace, leaving her friend in the dark. She still has a lot to learn, bringing history back to square one so that everything finally turns out as it should. Trying to forget about Ella, the girl makes her way into the crowd, looking at the beautiful fireworks that appeared in the air. The colorful fireworks help to distract us a little. Tomorrow really doesn't promise to be a good day. The imperial family stands on the balcony. The Empress is chatting pleasantly with the heroine, while Kahir looks into the distance. In the book, Paulos was a kind and compassionate person who cared about others even at her own expense. After meeting Kahir, she became stronger, turning into a strong girl, ready to give her life for her love. This is the person the young man needed so much, a person with a beautiful soul, but the new Ella is very different. The blonde lost her temper over the little misunderstanding, revealing her evil aura, which was thickening. This is not the girl Rosalind knows. However, it would be bad if Paulos hated someone he knew. The next day, everything started out exactly as usual. The hero gets ready to greet the new day. The secretary is quite tired, but she can't even think about resting in front of Kahir. He works day and night. Interrupting the conversation between the girls, the man calls out to Rosalind, who, of course, quickly rushes to help. From this moment on, banquets will be banned. The emperor was not entirely pleased with what happened. The guy doesn't like that the lady leaves him alone because it's inconvenient. The girl worked hard to introduce him to her destiny, but it was worth stepping away for just a minute and everything went completely wrong. On top of all this, Kahir continued to look for the secretary, but she was nowhere to be found, as if she had disappeared on purpose. The man was polite to the empress, so his reputation improved. Banquets will be banned for a while. The door slams shut. The young man is too hot-tempered, and this is mortally offensive, so it is necessary to end everything. It's very beautiful outside. Finally getting out into the garden when it's not night outside, the lady notices everything that's happening. Since early morning, the beauty had been spinning around at the noble gathering, so she couldn't even look at the sky. Approaching His Majesty, the maiden assumes that he has managed to get tired at the meeting. This must be corrected immediately. Peppermint tea will be what saves you from fatigue and irritation. It always helps. During the break, it is best to rest, but because of everything that is happening, the young man cannot even do anything. Kahir is very angry about how badly the aristocrats do their job, as if they know nothing. The boy has good looks, wealth, and intelligence. Rosalind cannot expect him to have a good character as well. A guard's voice is heard from behind, stopping someone. Diva immediately recognizes Ella. The colors become more intense, so the emperor asks menacingly what happened there. The girl immediately jumps up from her seat, getting ready to go check what happened. Don't get distracted so that the tea doesn't have time to cool down. Ella no estaba mintiendo cuando prometió que iba a venir a tomar té sin ninguna invitación. Noticing the girl, the blonde immediately starts waving her hand. She says that she has to meet the secretary. Clenching her palms, the girl almost bursts into tears, looking straight into the face of her interlocutor. They had agreed to meet. Apparently, Barrett had completely forgotten what she had arranged. Trying to contain her emotions, the girl promises that she will call His Highness now, because she really has forgotten. Blue Eyes doesn't immediately understand what's wrong, because the blonde sharply bows her head, greeting the son of the empire. Turning her head, the lady notices the prince. She does not immediately understand what exactly is wrong and who has arrived. Asking who it is, the young man is interrupted because Ella is responsible for Rosaline. They were introduced by the Dowager Empress. She is Barrett's friend. It is clear from the girl's face that this may not be true. The girl is about to explain everything, but she is stopped. Apparently, the king wants to sort out the whole situation himself. It seems that what happened was fate after all. The couple looks at each other, even if there is no smile on Kahir's face. I don't want to admit it, but the way Ella looks at the emperor shows that she is in love. The man doesn't feel any hostility either. No matter how you look at it, the heroine becomes superfluous. She is about to leave, but someone stops her, grabbing her hand. First, we need to get back to tea, and Miss Paulos can join the event in the lookout. His Majesty does not seem to understand what is supposed to happen and how exactly, judging by the way he behaves. The girl thanks him for the invitation, even if it is clear that the prince does not like being interrupted. There's no way Rosalind is friends with a girl from the Empress's faction. He doesn't listen to the chatter from the outside. For some reason, it's alarming that the secretary didn't deny that she was her friend. There's a more complex meaning involved here. The man thought he knew everything about the woman, but the realization that something was missing makes him feel pain. His Majesty is not feeling well. He tries to hide it because he is simply happy to have tea with a friend, an acquaintance. Awkwardness hangs in the air. The guy's whole appearance asks to get rid of the one who has arrived. Arriving, the same as the secretary, but thanks to the support of the Empress, Ella did not face some of the problems. Rosaline herself does not notice that she has grabbed her head. The young man calls out to the girl to ask how she is feeling. Getting up from his seat, the blonde puts his palm to his forehead, trying to determine his body temperature. She is clearly not feeling well. My head hurts a little, but the problem is much more serious. Virgo has turned pale, so it will be more important to rest now. His Majesty will not be left alone with Ella. The secretary must always be near the emperor, so the same rule applies both ways. The man asks Miss to forgive him for what happened because they didn't even get to enjoy each other's company. Grabbing Rosalind's hands, the lady quietly says that they have a lot to talk about, but they just can't get around to it. It's a pity that it's all over. The girl will have a good rest, and next time they will meet again. The evil smile makes you shrink. Even if the lady is not from this world, the main character still can't be such a terrible person just because of the way she acts. The pretense and smile that was given to the hero makes the beauty remain confused by everything that is happening. As she watches the couple go, the lady only thinks that this deep gaze should be directed only at her. Kahir's gentle hands in turn should touch only Ella, because that's what the book says. Love will have to wait a little longer. The guy asks Rosalind to tell him everything about that girl. She was ordered to rest, so she can't answer. The secretary must be at the Emperor's side, but only during working hours, and not when rest begins. The speech was completely different. The assistant should be there almost always, no matter what. This is what abuse of power looks like. A man is an immoral boss if he chooses to behave this way. Barrett's expression evokes a slight smile and a chuckle. It looks more like a rebellion that failed. The girl is tired. If the guy has something to say, he should have said it a long time ago, without delay. Finally collecting his thoughts, the young man promises that he will let the lady go, but only if she answers a few questions. The first one is, of course, about Ella. Kahir wants to know if they are really friends, but he doesn't believe in the honesty of the word yes. The girl may be on the side of the Empress, but the heroine cannot know this, even though she is asked to answer yes and no. Bowing her head, the lady repeats the same thing over and over again. She is not sure whether it is true or not. Then, if this is not a problem, the blonde can simply kill the beauty who has become boring to him. This is not possible, because the lady is the Emperor's destiny. He clarifies again, because he is not sure if he knows anything about this. The blonde looks intently at the girl's face, who tries not to bite her lips so as not to arouse suspicion. Nothing is known, but the prince would be best off leaving. The lady drives him out the door, leaning against it. Turning to Derek, the young man asks to check Rosalind's circle of friends. Lately, she has been in the clouds or seems unwell. This does not affect the work in any way, because the girl successfully completes everything just as always. The man is not only worried about this, he is indulgent towards other people's mistakes, which is, of course, not true. The girl was probably just too tired. In addition to the banquet, she had a lot of other work hanging over her, which is exhausting. There was no talk of a vacation. The last time His Majesty had offered to give her 2 extra days, she had always refused. If the lady does not want to take a vacation, then you can try to show her to the doctor to make sure of everything. Tomorrow, all the doctors of the Imperial Palace will be summoned to the palace. The unhealthy complexion indicated hidden problems. Derek is also tasked with finding out about Ella Paulos and how exactly she is connected to the Empress. She and Rosalind have a special relationship. A truly amazing incident occurred in the morning. Virgo sincerely does not understand how this could have happened at all, because there were no precedents for this. A huge number of doctors gathered in the room, vying with each other to ask what was hurting the girl. The prince ordered that Barrett be cured, otherwise he would deprive everyone of their positions and duties. The girl was attacked from all sides. Questions were about fatigue, well-being, and other things that could have happened and affected her. Tired of what was happening, the lady was about to leave on business, but she was immediately stopped, shouting that this was prohibited. This is a strict order from His Majesty. If it is violated, then everyone around will definitely be in trouble. The heroine blinks her eyes in surprise. She doesn't understand how it was possible to get to this point. Leaning closer to his ear, Rui says that doctors don't know if they can survive unless they find the cause. This completely upsets the entire plan for completing the tasks that the heroine had managed to build for herself. Finally breaking free from her bonds, the maiden arrives at the library of the Imperial Palace, where, of course, she meets the prince. The book in the young man's hands reminds him that he needed to read it. If it weren't for the morning commotion, the lady would have already submitted her report in the evening. Noticing the beauty, the blonde asks what happened. He sent many doctors, but in the end, they did nothing. More cruel jokes that don't matter. The girl wasn't in pain, so there's no point in worrying. Throwing the book into the secretary's hands, the young man says that he has read most of it, so it's time to finish the rest and hand in the report. The girl lets the emperor go, but suddenly remembers the priest Verlos. The answer about the temple must be given the next day. Thanks to Verlos's truce during the previous attack, peace and quiet reigned on the continent. Everyone should be rewarded. This became an excellent reason, so the lady promises to finish the book and then meet the priest. Changing his mind, the young man asks to forget about it and go to the meeting. The prince thought that the lady enjoyed reading a book, but on the other hand, it would be better to reduce the load. A genius like Kahir can know the end just by looking at the beginning. It doesn't mean anything. There's something wrong with the man, judging by how quickly his mood changes. Diverting the conversation, Derek announces that the Viscount of Pasketh has arrived. He was supposed to have an appointment, but he showed up unannounced. The contract for the registration of the construction of the temple does not require immediate registration, so you can go. The Viscount is not a frivolous person, so it is better to go. The heroine promises to meet the priest. Calling James, the guy asks him to go with the secretary, not listening to the fact that he can go alone. The guy is not the only one who is tired of Azella's screams when Rosalind makes her angry, so the knight will still go with her. It just meant that it was time to start the battle to finish everything at once. Verlos' priest, Antony, is the one the beauty was supposed to meet instead of the emperor. The girl enters, greeting Antony Leos. This is the second main male character of the book, with whom we will have to talk. Bowing, the young man also introduces himself, unaware that the secretary has long known all the information about him. Now the man is just a priest, but in the future he will become the head of the church and strengthen the state's relations with Aetius. In the novel, he is described as a wonderful person. His qualities are wonderful, just like his appearance. The young man is quite kind and sensitive inside. Soon, with his pure and sincere love, he will give Ella strength. There is silence in the room, and the girl's strange smile causes a little concern about this. Noticing the strange reaction, the girl asks, "Is everything okay?" Receiving only another smile, the man assures that everything is fine. For some reason, the goddess Etheusis, in the guy's imagination, looked exactly the same, so he was a little embarrassed. It seems that the lady has already seen this scene somewhere, but her thoughts are interrupted by the young man, who also mentions not only the girl's appearance. In this scene, Antony meets Ella for the first time, but for some reason all this is said not to her, but to Rosaline. There is no need to be sad. The lady has the impression in her head that this is a pickup phrase from a guy, so she can calm down. Even when his beloved Ella clung to his chest, the man did not hug her. Now he behaves more friendly. Interrupting the flow of thoughts, the hero asks what happened to His Majesty. Apparently he was too busy. As is known, the emperor carefully solves even the most minor issues, so this increases the volume of work. Verlos is a state that exists thanks to donations from believers who help the temple. The labors of priests and knights bring in their income, but this is not quite enough to fulfill the plan. Most of the money goes to support those in need, which of course also has an impact. This is why the government is making great efforts to build churches in different parts of the continent and increase the number of believers. With the help of Kahir, Verlos continued to spread their influence. They carefully supervise the construction of the temple. The results will be in very soon, so it will be possible to finally sign the contract soon. This makes Antony smile. Looking at the man, the lady once again notices the fact that he is too handsome to be a secondary character. Kahir is completely different, so he is different. His image is full of charisma and forbidden beauty, and the priest is more gentle. Be that as it may, there was no room for a man in the novel. He passed his happiness by giving in to Ella. The fateful love between Kahira and Paulos was incredibly strong. Even if they wanted to, no one could do anything to win. Noticing the changes in her face, the young man asks again about her health. The girl arrived because of work. There is no need to think about anything. Antony is doing great. The only downside is that he sits in his office, so there is absolutely no one to talk to. If it's not too much trouble for a girl, she could have a conversation with a man who just wanted to spend time in company. The boy looks more like a cute puppy, judging by his cute behavior. It is quite difficult to refuse such a person. The heroine thinks and then asks for advice. It will be about her friend, not about the girl herself. After hearing everything, the young man makes a verdict. The secretary's girlfriend perceives the man as her son whom she cares for. This is more likely to be true. The friend is happy because her friend can solve problems. The girl was truly happy because His Majesty was becoming more and more humane towards people. The way a lady takes care of her friend can be deciphered as parental love and care. Sometimes when she sees a man, something hurts in her chest and her heart beats hard. She worries like when a mother watches her child's first steps. This is understandable, but the conversation is still not over. The friend is worried about something else that incredibly badly needs to be talked about. A girl appears who suits the guy, but the friend has mixed feelings. Every time the heroine sees her, her mood worsens and a chill runs down her spine. What the blue-eyed girl is talking about is simple human jealousy. This happens to absolutely everyone. Ancient legends tell of how mothers once chose their daughters-in-law according to their taste. The situation is the same here. The future head of the church really holds his level. He thinks at the level of centuries and nations. That heaviness in her heart was not just like that. The maiden looked at His Majesty like a mother looks at her child, for whom she worries. It became easier, but for some reason my soul became restless. Evening and sunset came so quickly, and with it came thoughts about the emperor. In her apology, the lady asks for forgiveness for taking up so much of the young man's time, realizing that the conversation that took place did help her. Of course, nothing happened. Antony smiles, hoping that they will be able to chat some other time, at least once. If a man met a lady friend, he would say about the law that exists. You can't marry if your mother is against it, because there is nothing more accurate than intuition. The girl blinks her eyes in surprise. If this is really so, then it is worth thinking about your further actions. The priest explained everything, making the lady stop worrying. They are like a family that has been living together for a long time. Already walking along the corridor to her office, the girl is stopped by Rui. She had been looking for the secretary for several minutes already. His Majesty, after the conversation, went to rest, which means the matter is something else. The heroine received an urgent telegram from her friend. At first, she doesn't even quite understand who it is. Rui is not sure about the truth of the letter because, as far as she knew, the heroine had no friends outside the castle. Running her eyes over the lines, the girl asks the maid to say that she was not seen until she goes away. It is impossible to get outside the palace. The sun will set soon, so it is unclear where Rosaline is going. As it turns out, you can't even step away for a little while. Even James, who has been standing in silence all this time, confirms this. If the emperor finds out that Blue Eyes left the palace without permission, there might be problems, but it's still important. Eventually, James went with the girl to the place where the girls were going to meet. Both had to put on raincoats. The man cannot remain outside but must stay at least 10 paces from the table. While at one of the tables, the blonde takes off her hood, allowing herself to be noticed and approached closer. Of course it was Ella. No one else in their right mind would have asked to meet so late, in an unknown place. A lady of noble birth should not go to such places alone. The lady asks what the conversation will be about, since they are not so close that Paulos would call Rosaline at any time. They will soon become close. In the future, when the maiden marries His Majesty, this will change completely. The girl is aware of the plot, so the soldier will help. She can try to arrange Ella's personal life. The hand clenches in anger. They are both not of this world, and it is better to follow the plot, but it is not so important anymore. If we recall Kahir's childhood, described in the novel, then starting from the age of 6, the failures began, precisely when the previous emperor abandoned his mother, Lycia. 5 years later, when he was about 11, Azella gave birth to Karen, and the boy fell into disgrace because of what happened. Soon the emperor turned away from him completely, so the young man lived until he was 20 years old without even receiving the love he deserved. Since then, the guy's life was filled with wars and killing enemies, which gave him at least a drop of peace. The beast with the deep wound in its heart was no more, for Ella cared for it with all her heart. His Majesty, having experienced true love, found his happiness, which helped him finally calm down and feel loved. It was all for the benefit of the king. But now Rosaline was not sure about the current Paulos, who was so different. His Majesty will not suffer, so standing up, the lady announces that she will not help. The current Ella is not suitable for the emperor, and her reaction proves it. The maiden jumps up from her seat and screams. The heroine is just a secondary character, so she has no right. If Barrett had not existed, they would have been together long ago. Here, Ella is wrong. Everything went wrong not because of the girl, but because of herself and the actions she took. The girl should just look at herself. She is not at all like the main character, who was kind and sensitive. Unable to bear everything around her, Ella swings, but is stopped by James, who holds a sword to her throat. Nodding, the heroine assures the guy that everything is fine. She does not want to ruin Paulos's life even more than it already is. The girl will not succeed. No matter how hard she tries, all attempts will fail, and Rosalind will personally make sure of this. In future, don't touch the secretary unless you have an extra life in your pocket. She saves the girl from the blade for the last time. After the girl went to meet the priest, the emperor arrived to meet the viscount. With all due respect, this is not appropriate. The young man asks to arrange a meeting in advance, at least next time. Bowing his head, the brunette greets the emperor. He asks for forgiveness because the circumstances turned out to be much more complicated. The whole problem is that Prince Karen is about to get married. He has already reached that age. Not understanding how this happened, the young man grins. He considered the guy nothing more than a stupid child. Usually in the corridor, the blonde tries to somehow talk to the emperor, but his mother does not allow him. It's hard to believe that such a person has grown into someone who can now get married. It seemed that the boy was still a child. Her Majesty the Empress considers girls from different families, which means that she is choosing a suitable bride. This is not a threat in any way, but if His Highness's heir is born earlier, then this changes everything. If they come to power, the Emperor will not be able to do anything to stop it, because the imperial family is always ready. His Highness should marry first. This will give a good push to ensure that Karen does not even try to climb the throne. The man knew this, but he does not want to abandon anyone, like the previous emperor. This is not a problem for emotions. In such a situation, only political stability and the security of the imperial family are important. Everything that was about to happen was too much for Kahir's head. He didn't want to start on this note, but there was no way out. His gaze falls on the place where Rosalind usually sits. The man hopes that the girl is resting well and enjoying her solitude. Milady arrives at the estate, opening the door with a loud bang, flying inside with an angry expression on her face. The maid starts talking from the doorway about how everyone was worried about the mistress, but she only asks to leave her alone. Closing the door to her room, the blonde does not understand how she came to this. Everything should be different. Before, everything was only for the heroine. The wealth and even the love of Kahir belonged to Ella, who believed that she deserved it. Opening one of the cabinets in the nightstand near the table, the heroine looks at the book, only remembering her past life. Last time there were no problems or obstacles that could interfere with the meeting. One day she opened her eyes while lying down and found herself in her favorite novel as the main character. No one realized that she was not real. Thanks to the book and Paulos's role, living in her body was not at all difficult, despite what was predicted. Everything went exactly according to the plot. The lady met Castor in the ballroom, and they fell in love at first sight. After some time, a grand wedding took place at which Ella was the happiest bride. Like any other novel, the story ended on a happy note without showing the rest. The blonde hoped that the relationship with the guy would not get worse. She wanted him to look only at her. The lady had no intention of letting anyone take away the love of her life. She wanted to enjoy the good times. The girl suggested the young man spend the summer without children, but he did not agree. They are at such an age that they are acutely aware of loneliness. Instead of listening to objections, the man gets up to hug the children who ran into the room after the game. This happened more than once. A few days later, the lady was going to share the news with her husband, but he did not listen to her. He learned that Ella had not visited the prince and princess for a week. Children miss their mother, so they need more attention. After several quarrels and everything that happened, the lady could not stand it and slapped her husband. After that, the empress was taken away by servants. From that day on, Kahir stopped seeing his wife. The girl lived in a closed castle, thinking that no one should treat her like that. At some point everything went wrong, so the lady just wished to be given at least one more chance to fix everything. The girl was heard and thought that this time she would do everything right. She arrived at that very banquet to begin a love story. For some reason the suit was white instead of black, and the rest didn't match either. The guy was spinning around in a dance with Rosalind. This made the lady mad. Derek came to remind the emperor that it was very late, to which he asked if the secretary was planning to get married. The man nods. There are many reasons, but some marriages are still made for connections, not love. It cannot be said that the brunette does not understand why the guy avoids marriage, since His Majesty was never loved and did not see this in other people around him. The man's marriage has become the order of the day at the aristocratic gathering. It can't be put off any longer, no matter how much one might want to do so. The girl remembers last night. She regrets it a little, but in any case, she did the right thing. The plot has already changed anyway. Knocking on the door, the lady almost collides with His Majesty, who abruptly opens it. Rosalind has already arrived and asks how everything went. Surely the lady already knows about what has happened. The girl was not late, as she thought, because the young man simply arrived much earlier than her. Previously, the emperor ignored such meetings with aristocrats, but now he conscientiously attends every meeting and becomes an outstanding ruler. His Majesty must be happy. Even if his childhood was the most terrible, he will be able to overcome all difficulties. The event, as usual, began with a shout. Not one of the aristocrats even informed about how much had been appropriated, which was sad. The knights must be sent, or the emperor himself will go there to sort things out quickly. There is no reason why the young man should not go there, but it is clear from the faces of the aristocrats that something is wrong. Looking at Secretary Rosalind, the men seem to be begging for help with just one look. They want to be rescued, while Kahir, in turn, doesn't quite understand why each of them is staring at Rosalind. There was nothing special, but if you think about it, you can understand that the beauty has changed a little. Blue Eyes looks up, her gaze having been focused on the papers she was filling out. The girl does not immediately understand what is wrong with the aristocrats who are literally screaming for help to get out of this situation as soon as possible. The man begins to get annoyed that no one is taking their eyes off Barrett, so he orders that all necessary measures be taken before the next meeting. Stepping outside, the young man once again asks if it's true that nothing has changed in Rosalind. Nothing new, but for some reason the officials looked at the girl almost all the time. Everyone hoped that the beauty would be able to convince the prince. This is true, but then there is no explanation for why even the king cannot take his eyes off the lady. The heart starts pounding, even if the doctors said everything is fine. If the lady doesn't know, then it doesn't matter that much. On the same day, the priest Antonius Leos arrived. He was going to discuss all the details and sign the agreement with the emperor. Sitting down at the negotiating table, the young man thanks for inviting him to dinner. After the greetings, the food was brought. Even if it was a dinner with the emperor, it was too much for 3 people. The guy doesn't want to seem rude, so of course he says he likes every dish. He doesn't usually eat that much. The emperor knows that in Verlos, gluttony is considered a sin. This is obvious, so of course everyone knows about it. Kahir cannot authorize construction without knowing all the details. This means that it has already been firmly decided to begin construction. Although it took some time, the promise will be fulfilled. The secretary immediately brings his greetings with good luck. It's all thanks to the emperor. He is always attentive to details and even such trifles that help in management. As Leos watched the meal go by, it eventually dawned on him that Rosalind had been talking about herself yesterday. It wasn't about some friend and her acquaintance, but about Barrett and His Majesty, with whom she was so close, even though she considered it work. Tomorrow would be the day when Rosaline would finally go home. It came very rarely. It's true because the Virgo has a weekend once every 2 years. Time flies too fast. As usual, she plans to stay there for 2 days, but if there is nothing urgent, then longer. Over the past 5 years, the beauty has not even been able to relax on weekends and take care of her health. Previously, a maiden had to be at the emperor's side so that nothing would happen. Now, professional officials have graduated from the academy. Barrett will also be able to take an indefinite leave, which pleases her. There will be tea parties and a quiet life. In the end, the dreams were dashed. The girl is given only 3 days instead of vacation. This is the maximum that can be allowed. The heroine was going to find out about Ella during her vacation, but now it will have to be postponed. She won't leave the emperor just like that. Even knowing how much Kahir hates Azella, she united with him. The girl tries to bargain. 4 days, then 5 days where she is caught, since the answer to both options is no. His Majesty does the same in negotiations, and apparently Rosalind only learns bad things, which does not have a very good effect. If a man is determined, he keeps it to the end. If not, he shouts at the top of his voice. These are the words of the prince, and this is not a bad influence. The girl becomes more and more charming. Catching himself on this thought, the young man is surprised. Noticing the sudden change in his face, the maiden leans closer, asking if he needs any help. A beauty looks wonderful at the very moment when she blinks her eyes like a child. The boy is silent, but he understands that he is going crazy because of fatigue. The problem is not with Rosalind, but with him. In any case, Barrett will not be given more than 3 days. Therefore, getting up from his seat, the young man pushes the heroine out of the room. Saying goodnight, the man slams the door right in the secretary's face, hinting at the end of the conversation. Rui, who is usually after the woman, suggests going to the hot springs this time. The girl has only 3 days, so she won't even be able to relax. Recently, many places have appeared for only 1 day, so the friend does not give up. The conversation about rest is interrupted by a familiar voice. It is, of course, Antony, who, seeing the secretary, waves his hand. The girl was lucky enough to meet the man just before leaving, so she bows down. The blond man returns to Verlos. He only needs to go 1 do and quickly convey the good news. The girl was very pleased to talk to the priest, and it is true. He helped her make a decision about Ella. Blushing a little, the boy says that as soon as he thinks of Etheus, he immediately thinks of the young lady with pink hair. If the lady has time, he would like to have a cup of tea with the lady before she leaves. It has to happen right now. The guy is going to tell something else about the girlfriend who is involved here. The conversation starts with the simplest thing. The guy has never been to this cafe, so he doesn't know how delicious the coffee is here. The girl suggests adding milk or honey, which can only greatly improve the taste. As he adds the suggested ingredients, the young man begins to cough. The taste seems too strange for something like this. The recommendation was in vain. You need to drink it longer to appreciate the wonderful taste. Looking at the lady, the man promises that he will not take too much time. He understands how everything happens. As for the friend, everything turned out to be more complicated. Perhaps the conversation was not about a familiar girl. All this was said about the heroine herself and about His Majesty Kakir. Such things become noticeable almost immediately. Antony was quite perceptive. The Virgin did not want to lie, but it was not to extract an apology. People are constantly suffering or in conflict and cannot make a choice. The topic changed suddenly. The guy doesn't calm down. It's easy to be tempted, so the girl also needs to make the right choice. The priest can speak more freely because the beauty is able to take care of herself. In the end, the truth was told. Excessive motherly love can also be toxic and have a strong influence. Parents play a very important role, but they must know when to let the child leave the nest. They can devote their whole life to the child, but this is not the right thing to do. Lately, there have been rumors that the aristocrats are looking for a lady to become empress. This has been said for quite some time. If the girl continues to be so distracted, she will remain his secretary for the rest of her life. It sounds like horror. The man is not worried about the lady interfering with the wedding, but he wants to warn her. The worry is too high, so it can lead to stupidity. People in love often lose the ability to think rationally when they begin to immerse themselves in their love. Virgo would never harm Kahir's chosen one because she is still of sound mind and memory. However, Antony's worries are not unfounded. He knows exactly what he is talking about. If you think about it, even the beautiful mother of the Virgin changed a lot after her brother's wedding. From now on, the lady is not allowed to be near the emperor. She understood this, so she thanks the priest. Finally, the lady returned home. Immediately from the threshold, throwing herself into her mother's arms, the beauty smiles. Mom always supports and knows how to comfort, which is exactly what the girl missed so much every time she was in the castle. The father smiles too. The daughter has become prettier while they haven't seen her, and even if they had to wait quite a long time, it has finally happened. Inviting Rosalind to sit down on one of the sofas, the lady says that they have something to talk about. While drinking tea, the man quietly asks how old his daughter is this year, as if he himself doesn't know. The girl is already 23 years old, and when she went to the castle, she promised to return just at this time. It is at this age that life begins. Handing over an envelope, the man says that inside is a marriage proposal. As usual, a meeting is taking place in the castle. Leaning on his hand, the blonde suggests continuing after a short break. Rosaline hasn't moved from her spot. She's thinking about something, trying to understand something in her head. The emperor noticed that the secretary had been behaving rather strangely ever since she had returned from her parents. The mother tried to convince the beauty. She did not think of working as a secretary until the very end of her life. The couple found a wonderful count with a good, clean reputation for their daughter. This opportunity must be used to sort everything out and finally return home to arrange your personal life. Everything happened suddenly, so the lady asks for time to think. Of course, ordinary life is an expensive happiness. It's not that difficult considering the circumstances. When the daughter arrives, the father expects to hear a certain answer from her. Thoughts about marriage and work filled her head so much that it was not the first time the beauty heard her name being called. Getting up from her seat, the girl quietly asks if the man has any errand for her. The banquet went well, and the maiden had to perform impossible tasks for some time. The emperor wants to reward the man who is so diligent. Looking into the woman's eyes, the young man asks what she really wants. It's strange that this is said by the man who didn't let the heroine rest. It can be considered a great rarity to hear something like this. Starting to lose his temper, the blonde asks again, perhaps this is the very chance for a new life for Rosalind. Everything that was in the book is repeated. The girl has thought it all over, so she finally asks to resign. The words make the young man almost jump out of his seat. He does not believe or does not want to believe what is said. He won't allow something like that to happen. In her defense, the lady reminds us that the emperor promised to do anything. Rosalind wanted to leave this world, and this is obvious, because the only way to leave this position is through death. This is too much. The girl doesn't want to work for His Highness all her life, so this is upsetting. The couple stands in complete silence, just looking at each other. They can't take their eyes off each other. Seeing no one coming in, Derek goes inside, realizing that the atmosphere there is not the best. Quietly approaching, the brunette asks if they are discussing something important, to which the young man, without looking away, asks to leave. Already forgetting about the secretary, the guy persistently asks Rosalind what is the main need of a person. It is food and survival, which is the wrong answer. It makes the lady freeze, because in her past life she worked tirelessly just for this. Barrett really doesn't know what's important. She still has a lot to learn. There is no point in all this if everyone eventually dies and leaves the world. A wise man said that it should be so. Now Kahir rejects the lady's request to save his life. This behavior of the man at lunchtime made the heroine very angry. She wanted to scream or even cry. The lady sighs as she leans back against the pillows. She never thought she would be refused. If you think about it, being a secretary is certainly difficult, but not so bad. It has its advantages. The maiden is used to busy days, considering the fact that His Majesty has changed quite a lot. The lady receives money for her work, and her reputation has improved. Now the heroine can freely communicate with aristocrats, so there aren't enough fingers to count all the advantages. All the same, if the lady remains a secretary all her life, she will lose absolutely everything, and her plan will fail. The night drags on slowly, but the girl still can't fall asleep. She's tired, but her thoughts are too annoying. In Ethius, married daughters of aristocrats can no longer work, so combining both will not work in any case. It turns out that you just need to fall in love, but there is no one to fall in love with. Rui and Derek met in the palace, so the only hope is for someone nearby. Still, not every detail is so important. The people around were always friendly, but Kahir was a nuisance. Appearing nearby, the young man, like a luminary, pointed to the one who really should be in attention. This was incredibly irritating to the heroine, because of the man, the standards were now too high. With sleep, there was no more hope, so the maiden got up from her seat to look out the window. Looking at the night sky, the lady wonders why the prince reacted like that. He usually doesn't get attached to people. In the novel, the only person close to her was Ella Paulos. She was the only one who meant a lot to a man who didn't care. The girl realizes that she has been paying too much attention to love. It's all because of affection and a sense of duty. It seemed to be just a simple gesture of politeness, which only proved once again that the maiden was confused. The blonde also doesn't understand what to do. Other people can even tell by his mood that it's spoiled. Sitting down on the chair, the man throws his head back. He is very confused, no longer understanding what exactly he should do. Memories of what happened just a few hours ago come to mind. The man will not allow his girlfriend to leave her position. There is nowhere else to find a person like Barrett who understands the emperor at a glance and quickly does everything. Derek would like to be with Rui, so he hopes that they will let him go. The guy turns to the brunette with a request. Suddenly, a memory came to mind that the blonde had previously asked the servant to make a report on Rosalind, but never received it. Already sorting out this issue, the guy did not find anything suspicious, but it was not because of this. Virgo is ready to go through everything to protect the state. Of course it was true, and the brunette realized too late that his answer was wrong. They have been working together for 5 years now, but for some reason, the friend still doesn't know anything. After all this has been said, the prince reveals the truth, which is astonishing. Rosalind has long been in love with Kahir, which is immediately obvious. This sounds more like nonsense. The secretary cannot be in love with the person she works with. The man was interested in something else. He needed some details, or at least some advice on how to change the girl's point of view. The lady is really a strange person, especially lately. Nothing comes into my head to think about it. It turned out that Barrett's family received a marriage proposal, and it happened not so long ago. Not understanding what the problem is, the young man asks himself, as if he were asking if the blue-eyed girl's older brother is divorced. In Atheist, divorce is legal, but marriage is considered sacred and eternal. Breaking a vow among aristocrats is considered a terrible sin that is not easily forgiven. It usually carries consequences. Perhaps the heroine said this in order to leave because of the scandal associated with Roy, because her reputation could suffer. Rosalind thought about leaving for the good of someone she loved very much. As usual, it was just kindness. This is true because the lady, more than anyone else, cares about the reputation of the royal family, and for the sake of water and remarriage, they can ignite a scandal. I don't want to upset His Majesty, but Derek says that the offer came not to his brother, but to Barrett herself. Noticing how the guy clenches his fists, the brunette asks with concern in his head if everything is okay. Trying to smile through his anger, the blonde man lowers his voice and asks who sent the marriage request. It was none other than Count Svit, who would surely get what he deserved. Derek would have to sort this out. There should be no stone left unturned in a man. This is no longer a request, but a real order. This cannot be told to anyone, so the guy will report directly to the Emperor. Orders do not require reasons, so the instruction must be carried out in any case. I didn't want to even imagine Rosalind getting married. She would pack her things and thank me for all the years. The couple would then get married. Their happiness would most likely know no bounds, and they would enjoy each other. Over time, a family portrait would appear in the living room, depicting a happy family. Such pictures of the future already made the young man shudder with hatred for the Count. This cannot be allowed. Several days later, the Emperor still thought about Svit, who had dared to send a marriage letter in every free minute. Rosaline finds it hard to concentrate on her work. Things haven't gone according to plan, but she tells herself that she'll get another chance to talk. Handing over the folder, the lady begins to talk about the report on the construction of the temple. The council believes that the quieter site on Bretzel Street is suitable, not Axel Street. The blonde immediately asks the reason. There are many aristocrats living on the 2nd Street, which can have a big impact. The street has always belonged to the aristocracy, and if different people come there, it can cause discontent. People living on Bretzel are quite relaxed about foreigners and new religions. At the meeting of aristocrats, it is worth noting that 2 sites were allocated for construction. The Emperor himself is inclined to the Bretzel site. This way, there will be much less objections, which makes the girl smile and praise such a decision. The man has changed a lot because before, in such situations, the girl had to decide everything herself, and when she did something, there were a lot of arguments at the meeting. Now there was no doubt, because Kahir would go down in history as an outstanding emperor of Atheist. Raising his head, the young man notices that Rosalind is again lost in thought, not intending to say anything. Perhaps she has thoughts of marriage in her head, so jumping up from his seat, the hero thinks about a gift that only he can give. Coming closer and standing next to her, the man asks the girl to find a pendant with a pink diamond. The girl blinked, not quite understanding why she was asked to do something so specific. It is needed as a gift, but if the prince says for whom exactly, it will be possible to find out about the person's preferences. Rosalind's voice is too sweet. Losing the thought that was going through his head, the blonde just listens to the timbre. The maiden tilts her head to the side and quietly calls out to His Majesty. She would like to discuss everything. It's not a gift, it's a bonus. That's the only thing that becomes clear from what the young man says. This will all be done for Rosalind, so it changes its meaning. Virgo erases everything written in the notebook. The girl doesn't need anything like that at all. She never expected a gift of this kind. The stone is so rare that only 3 or 4 of them can be found on the entire continent each year. The gift cannot be for Barrett. A man is going to give such a gift not only because it is simply not needed. A gift with such an exchange system does not seem too good, and even for the heroine it is too much. For that kind of money, it would be better to buy a shop with necklaces near the palace than some pendant that you won't need. The man tells Rosalind that she should not object. If consent is not heard, then a precise date will be set. The king will be busy, so he is not sure that he will be able to be there, but he still asks for consent again. Softening his gaze, the young man asks what the heroine wants then. He does not expect to hear anything unpleasant. Looking with big eyes, almost begging, the beauty asks him to resign and go home. This, of course, gets a no answer. The hero immediately removes his hand from the interlocutor's chin. He will never allow this. There is silence in the room until Derek breaks it. He has learned everything he needs to know about Count Svit, just as he was ordered. Nothing suspicious was found. He was simply a count living on the outskirts of the capital, and his estate, though small, had fertile soil, as did his financial situation. The man clearly ordered to find out every detail, so he is not satisfied with the answer, "There is nothing to worry about." The only detail was that in the winter 3 years ago, due to severe frosts, the demand for fur increased. At that time, Count Svit was one of the aristocrats who bought these furs. He certainly became rich, but his transactions were legal. The young man smiles as he sips his drink. This is no small thing, because it seems the hero has too many shortcomings to marry Barrett. As you know, 3 years ago, because of everything, aristocrats demanded a reduction in the tax on the purchase of fur. Once it went down, it's strange how exactly they wanted to compensate for the expenses that were given. Derek remembers that they then proposed cutting funding for widows and orphans, which turned out to be absurd. This is a crime that has caused losses to the empire. But since much time has passed, the culprit will get off with a minor punishment. Count Svit will be in the detachment and will go to the border. Just 5 years will be enough. This makes one doubt because you can't send an aristocrat who only knows how to read books to the border. He will die there from depression or from injury, but he has to agree with a wise decision so as not to upset Kahir. Rui runs as fast as he can, calling for the Lord Secretary, and then hands over an urgent telegram that has arrived from home. The parents ask that she be handed over as quickly as possible so that everything would become clear to Rosalind. Opening the envelope, the lady reads that the marriage proposal has been withdrawn. The count will decide to join the knights and go to the border. It is strange that the son of an aristocratic family proposed to have a wedding and now suddenly goes to the border. The image that immediately comes to mind is of the blonde man who previously said that there was no way to lose his job. The girl does not want to believe that Kahir is somehow involved in this, but all the facts point to one person. Hiding in the corridor behind one of the columns, the lady looks at Derek, who passes by. In a quiet voice, the heroine calls the man, who does not even immediately understand what they want from him and who this person is who is calling him. Turning his head, the boy notices Rosalind, who puts her finger to her mouth and then calls him to come closer. Turning to the lady, the guy asks what she forgot here. Obviously, this is not just like that. There is no need to make noise, so the lady, without saying anything, seems to ask to follow her quickly because they need to talk. The girl quietly approaches the door without saying a word, even if the man standing behind her asks questions once again. Finally turning to the brunette, the maiden asks if he knows how this happened with Count Svit. Looking down at the floor, the young man lies that he personally has not dealt with such a matter. It is hard to believe that the reason is somehow connected with the Virgin herself. She notices abrupt changes in the man's face and emotions. Recently, His Majesty has been monitoring the activities of the aristocrats' market monopoly, and it has been discovered that the Count has been making illegal profits, and so he has been punished. The guy tries to explain the fact that he is not lying, but a reasonable question arises. The prince should have told the maiden. This is true, so Sir should tell it as it is, without trying to hide anything from prying eyes. The young man cannot tell the truth. He wants to marry Rui, have children, and live happily ever after, which he will not be able to do if he tells. As the maiden herself knows, His Majesty values the country, so everything he does out of simple love. This is the pure truth. Even Rosalind herself must be aware that the king cares for his subjects and lands. The The man quickly runs away, saying that he has things to do. It seems that there is more to it than that, although that cannot be true. While checking the market situation, they found evidence, but sent him to service immediately after the wedding proposal. This seems like a simple coincidence, so the Virgin decides to lean towards it. She thinks about the unnecessary. At a meeting of aristocrats, they are going to solve the problem of monopoly. The prince goes first. Opening the office, the lady is about to go inside to begin negotiations. The emperor squints a little but then asks where the heroine was, who simply disappeared. Virgo lowers her gaze as there is only one logical explanation. She was writing a reply to a telegram from home. The man is surprised that something like this was sent at all, because the lady had just returned from home. There was something important in it. Of course, His Majesty knew what he was talking about, because just recently Derek said that he had carried out the order for the Count. Now it is clear that the engagement was broken. This cannot but please, because the beauty will no longer go and say that she wants to leave. Trying to forget about everything that happened, the lady only says that there was absolutely nothing special there. After the meeting ends, the young man asks only Rosaline to remain, asking her about the pendant. The Virgo does everything she can, but the man himself knows how rare this stone is, and there are almost no places to mine it. The blonde grins and nods. He knows all this, of course, but he's already had something in mind. They are precious, but not that precious because the king's crown has quite a few of these diamonds. Drawing attention to the crown, the prince suggests not to try in vain, if this task is so overwhelming. Trying to get one of the stones, the young man is stopped by the secretary. This is not right, especially with such an important thing. These stones are hard to find, so the guy just wants to give at least one to complete the task, which he doesn't question. They all belong to the hero, which means you can do whatever you want. It's not that important. It is a royal heirloom of the royal family, so it even contains the tears of the goddess Etheusis. It is a treasure that must not be damaged. The stones won't have to wait long. The girl promises that she will get at least one tomorrow, and then she will be able to complete the task. The guy asks if this is serious or not true, but notices a slight fear in the eyes, so he falls silent. It is obvious that the blonde can trust his secretary like no one else, because if Rosalind promises something, she always does it. The situation seems to amuse the man, because the beauty notices a slight smile on his lips, which freezes. The next day, everything was done. The girl handed the stone to the master, who promised to make something beautiful out of it. Opening the case, the man reveals a beautiful pendant with an almost sparkling stone that seems superb. The miracle was ready, despite such a tight deadline, and this made the heroine incredibly happy, as she no longer had any hope for anything. The design was developed by the emperor himself, so of course it couldn't have been done without help. The heroine, of course, didn't know this. As soon as the maiden found the diamond, several people were immediately sent to the jeweler, who managed to prepare everything. The young man does not know who exactly the pendant is for, but for some reason he is sure that it is a gift for someone very important, apparently. The simple yet elegant shape of the pendant suits the diamond very well and highlights its beauty. The seller is about to pack the item. Standing next to the training knights, the young man sighs. He doesn't like all the techniques and the way they use them. Everyone gathered here, according to the hero, is too weak. They don't have enough training and preparation. Even before he heard the sweet voice, the young man smelled the scent coming from behind, letting him know who had arrived. Sure enough, it was Rosalind, who arrived with a small wrapped box made of velvet. Clearing his throat, the guy says that he is better than all the knights they took, so they will never be able to cope with them. If they want to be knights, they have to be like Hambag. The commander has been holding a sword since he was 5 years old and is now one of the best. You can't compare two different levels, but the hero still doesn't like it very much because he demands better. Interrupting His Majesty's grumbling, the lady reminds him that the pendant has already been made. The girl is about to take it and leave, but the man asks her to open the box and let him check everything. Looking at the thing in the sun, the blonde smiles contentedly. The work was really done perfectly. Asking Rosalind to turn around, the guy asks her to put her hair up and let him put the thing around her neck. It's strange that the hero chose this place to do something. There are a lot of unwanted people around. His Majesty wants to see how the pendant will look on its owner, but she asks that she put it on herself. Expressing his disagreement, the prince raises his hand so high that the secretary cannot even reach his cherished dream. The man himself chooses what to do with his gift, so this battle will end in favor of Kahir. Asking the lady to put her hair up again, the young man orders her not to be stubborn. At any moment he can order everyone to look at them. Asking what kind of soap or perfume Rosalind uses, the guy still puts the pendant on his neck, trying to fasten it faster. Fastening the clasp turned out to be much more difficult than the young man thought. It doesn't work the first time, which makes the girl swallow hard. Perhaps it's all because Kahir is incredibly nervous. He doesn't even understand why everything inside him is pounding. The realization comes much later. The blonde tries to shake off the obsession that came over him during such an easy task. The hero was even able to defeat the enemy, the name of only 100 knights, when his strength was 10 times greater than others. But for some reason now everything has changed. The aroma really does make your head spin. The girl turns her head and quietly asks if she can put her hair back. Moving even closer, the boy sniffs the body, which smells of a floral scent, realizing that he had not smelled it before. The man was too fast, so almost jumping back, the lady asks what happened that he is now behaving like this. Without paying much attention to what was said, the blonde grabs the lady by the hand and pulls her very close to him. The girl blinks her eyes in surprise. She would like to scream, but she can't, so as not to attract attention. People are still watching, so the heroine tries to distance herself, although it's all in vain. She must answer only the truth. The chief knight, noticing this, tries to distract the others from looking at the picture, so he orders 100 blows. Now that no one will be watching, the man asks once again to tell only the truth and not lie. Bowing his head very close to his neck, the young man asks what this scent is. It is not perfume, but then what is it? The smell seems sweet, or even cloying, indicating that the lady still uses something to achieve this. The boy seems so interested that the heroine gives in. This is body talc, which is usually used after a bath. There is nothing more to say. Virgo asks to let her go so that they can continue the conversation without any problems that affect so much. Without taking a single step back, the young man again asks for an answer to another important question. Even if it is not true, the lady still keeps saying that she wants to quit. If she wants to quit, what is she going to do next? It seems like a bad dream, but even if the lady has her own plan, she is no longer sure of the truthfulness of her actions and desires. Leaning even closer, the king asks his question again. He tries to tactfully push the heroine to answer. Rosalind has to answer. She can't be so greedy just because of a pink diamond she was just given. Taking a few steps back to avoid hugging her friend, the lady says she wants to live a normal life. A happy life consists of having tea parties and gatherings with aristocrats, traveling, embroidering, and studying what the heroine likes. This will no longer limit the girl. She wants to wear beautiful jewelry and clothes. All this time, the beauty had been holding herself back, so now she got excited because of some question and the pendant that was given to her. For these 5 years, the lady has not been able to enjoy luxury. This is all that seems to be devaluing the problems. The heroine won't be able to enjoy it all the time. She's going to live such a luxurious life after she's fired. It is not immediately clear what exactly is meant, because the lady does not even intend to bathe in luxury, but simply enjoy what she has. The emperor says this is all because he is worried about the secretary. For a person, striving for a better life is a normal thing. For some reason, the beauty is ready to leave, even if she lives at an average level, not allowing herself too much. The meeting of the aristocracy begins, so the blonde puts his hand on his head, saying that he has listened to the beauty's wish. The Virgo has lived with a man like a prince, so she begins to get tired of it, just like diamonds when you wear them for a long time. From the very beginning, the man lived a grateful life, so he does not know what it is to live simply. Later they will return to this question. The knights who had taken a break from their training to rest a bit stared in surprise. It is hard to believe that His Majesty bowed his head. He allowed an assistant to place the crown on his head in front of the assembly. Virgo asks to be patient a little longer, because of course she can't do anything about the meeting of the aristocrats. Taking a few steps back, the beauty adjusts her crown, saying that she has finally finished everything. Every time it's the same thing, but the secretary doesn't have time to get lost in her thoughts because Derek calls her. A smile fills the face by itself. The lady tries not to show it, but she is truly proud of His Majesty. Everyone who was supposed to be there had already gathered in the room. The conversation turned to the construction of the temple in Verlos, and it turned out that all the matters had already been settled. Everyone worked hard, so now they are eagerly waiting for their praise. Before, they were even afraid to look at the king. The whole problem was that before most of them were incompetent. Now everything has completely changed, which made them happy. Thus, circumstances themselves helped. The meeting begins because Bretzel Street has been chosen for the building. Pashit, after finishing, of course, turned to the emperor again. He needed to discuss something, knowing that he would not leave him alone. The emperor has brought peace to the empire, but his power only extends deep into the continent. To fix this, the empress's place must be filled. The subjects need a warm and caring woman. The well-being of the imperial family is the key to stability for the state. The aristocrats, however, have not changed anything, because they still desire His Majesty's wedding. The current empress is not the boy's biological mother, but her younger sister, so the position could be jeopardized at any moment. The members of the emperor's family are precious, so the concerns are understandable. Everyone wants stability, and this is no longer a secret. Turning to Rosaline, the young man breaks her out of her thoughts. He asks if this is what Madam Secretary wants. Count Pashit is right. Ella no puede convertirse en la nueva emperatriz, por lo que la dama solo dice que es hora de pensar. The man knew that the girl would hold this opinion, but she would still decide to ask. It was logical. The young man would not like to enter into a marriage of convenience or politics, but there is no choice. If this is what the subjects say, then it is worth preparing a list of candidates. Finally, consent was given, so the aristocrats began to discuss the selection. Many had daughters or nieces who were already of marriageable age. Many people immediately realize that they have to put forward their candidacy. There are not many choices, but it is worth making. Interrupting Lord Ski's conversation, His Majesty did not order a decree on the selection, but asked that it be made as fair as possible. One must be careful with words. Although this is inevitable in order to conclude a political marriage, one must be more careful. The lady went straight to the meeting from the training ground. She would have liked to soak in the bath, but no one would let her do it. Turning away, the maiden sighs, but the emperor asks her about the question. She nods, waiting for it to be asked. Looking intently at the beauty, the blonde asks if his wedding is ordinary compared to the others. The young man cannot find the right words. He understands that he needs to say something correctly, but in the end he gives up. This is a union between the moon and sun of the empire. It does not fall under the concept of a normal wedding, which of course changes everything. His Majesty's mood has noticeably worsened. The lady is practically jumping around, singing praises of what is to come. Usually the hero speaks less floridly, which worries the heroine a little. She doesn't know what has happened. Turning away, the young man asks not to talk about it. It is worth returning to the discussion of the secretary's ordinary life in the future. There is interest from the very beginning, so the guy asks what the lady wants to do in the future. The lady doesn't even know what exactly she can say in response to what she is being asked about. In the future, she would like to do many things and then find the right man and marry him and have a child. Looking at Rosalind carefully, the young man asks what the girl means. He did not quite expect to hear something like that. Combing her hair back with his hand, the man once again asks her to say what she is about to do. Starting to talk again about tea parties and everything else, the beauty freezes when she is interrupted because something else is being said. The girl doesn't believe that she managed to say something wrong. She was just answering the question. Finally realizing her mistake, the lady quietly asks if the young man was upset by the words about marriage, because obviously he didn't want it. The young man does not look annoyed, but the lady tells the man who is marrying for convenience that she will do it for love. The guy can't believe that the secretary decided to have her wedding before the emperor himself, because that's not how it should be. The answer becomes clear. No, because a lady has no right to marry much earlier under any circumstances. There is only one question. If the prince marries, then the maiden also has the right to marry if she finds her love. Night has fallen, leaving only James on guard duty. Running into the office because of the sounds, the man draws his sword. Someone dared to touch His Majesty, but instead of seeing a thief, the young man sees the emperor himself. The blonde adjusts his hair, remaining just as calm, and only asks to put the sword back in its sheath. The man is late again, but he is only asked what he thinks about what has happened during this time. All this was not to get rid of the corpse or anything else. because the problem was different. It wasn't for that. The blonde quietly asks James to bring Derek quickly. No one should know that this happened. It was well past midnight, so the brunette did not understand what they wanted from him. As it turned out, His Majesty wanted to prepare a tea party. The event must be impressive. All the ladies who are in the capital at the moment must be invited. If you count the time for preparation, then noon would be suitable. It happened too abruptly and spontaneously. The man has never been interested in anyone, but in order to keep the specialist by his side, he needs to make at least some effort. The words hit like an electric shock, because the brunette understands everything almost immediately. It's about Mr. Secretary. There is no need to ask questions, because if everything is clear, it is worth starting the preparation with cookies, cakes, and tea. Everything should be top-notch. Aristocrats must be about the same age as Rosaline. Nothing can be missed. Derek feels like he's still asleep, so he pinches his cheek. To help, the Emperor does the same. Everything must be perfect, so the servant promises to do everything as best as possible. In addition to all this, there is one more request. We need to find a noble lady who will help Barrett at tea. They should get along well. She should be an etiquette teacher. As he leaves the door, the secretary grabs his head with his hands and starts screaming as loud as he can, but without making a sound. At the opening of the Temple of Verlos, a famous priest will be present along with the others. It would be possible to have dinner with him. There is no right to choose. The priest is an honorary voice, and the rest are just the administration. In Verlos, they are sure that all people are equal. It becomes clear that this will not play a role, so Rosalind suggests that they finish everything as quickly as possible and go on other business. The meeting will be over at this point. No one knows who exactly will come, but the discussion is already in full swing. One of the girls says that she heard that there are a lot of handsome guys in that country. She can't miss the opportunity. Noticing that the Emperor has arrived, the beauty asks if there is any errand, but hears only that they need to go somewhere. It's obviously time for tea, so the beauty quickly ties her hair with a feather so that nothing gets in the way. Sitting down at the table, the girl gathers the papers and other documents into one pile to take with her. Turning to Rosalind, the young man asks her to change her clothes. He does not immediately say the reason, simply leaving silence around. Nothing is visible, so this becomes a compelling reason. We are talking about a pendant that was given not so long ago. Virgo tilts her head to the side, not understanding. She tried to build a logical chain, but failed. The young man's mood suddenly worsened, but he looks at the girl's eyes. They shine like precious stones. Stepping back, the lady asks what happened. Finding the strangest argument, the young man mentions her disheveled hair. The beauty herself can handle something like this, but she always does the same for the Emperor. This is all because the lady is a secretary, and this is part of her duties. It is worth taking advantage of the kindness that is given at least once. The heroine is simply not used to it, although she will have to get used to something new in the future. With these words, the king turns to leave. The young man had changed a lot lately. There were no more logical explanations that I wanted to know about. Rosaline stands motionless, because there is too much to think about. The boy calls her to follow him. Next time, a lady simply has to wear a dress with an open neck, even if she doesn't understand why she needs it. No longer trying to express his sincere thoughts, the guy only talks about the pendant, which is not visible because of the collar. The heroine still looks into the distance with a questioning, strange look. She doesn't know if she can say anything. The count of the guests who are due to arrive is complete. Derek supervises the work of the servants, constantly hurrying them. All efforts were put into the preparation, but the ladies were not in a hurry to even go. Perhaps not all of them will come by urgent invitation. Everything has changed. There are too many ladies, even if it seemed that there would be much fewer people in the land. The lady does not immediately understand where they are going. It is obvious that on this day the couple will drink tea not in the garden, but in the estate. His Majesty has arrived, so opening the doors, the young man points to the decorations and the people. Rosalind said that this is what she wanted. Something like this will definitely touch the girl no matter what. The mood has also noticeably improved for both of them. Apparently, the heroine is so touched that she cannot even utter a single unnecessary word that bothers her. His Majesty has misunderstood again. When the lady spoke of a party, she spoke of a simple tea party with a few people. The ladies around are dressed too smartly. The tea party has already turned into an exhibition of outfits. A middle-aged woman appears at his side, thanking him for the invitation. Her name is Becky Flint, of the baronial House of Flint. It is this person who is a famous teacher of etiquette throughout the country. The ladies who arranged the tea party call her magnificent. The woman is ready to come at any moment, so of course she responded to the invitation to the palace. Tilting her head to the side, the brunette asks, with interest, who is the organizer of today's banquet. Pointing at Rosalind and placing his hand on her shoulder, the young man says that Barrett is the one who arranged such a tea party. The ladies around are whispering. They probably thought it was His Majesty's idea, but it turned out to be the opposite. Bowing her head, the heroine thanks for calling her. Madam Secretary has definitely tried her best to arrange everything. Now it's time to start working. The girl doesn't immediately understand what is being discussed, so she blinks her eyes in surprise. The event organizer, as is customary, is obliged to welcome all the guests gathered at his place. Trying to cheer up his friend, the emperor promises that he can look after everything, and she will be able to cope with the task. Ella, standing to the side, also watches what is happening. She is almost ready to rush forward due to anger and nervousness. His Majesty has no intention of going anywhere. His schedule is too full, but for some reason it has now been changed. It won't be possible to hide from the others, however. From the very beginning, the young man didn't even guess what exactly Barrett wanted. Since this happens, the Virgo decides that she should do what she had planned from the very beginning. This is the first time, so even if they are just the daughters of aristocrats, the lady is incredibly nervous before doing anything. In any case, you can't lose heart. The lady tries to convince herself that she will absolutely succeed no matter what. His Majesty truly values the secretary, since the palace opened its doors specifically for tea drinking. The selection of candidates for the role of Empress will begin soon, but many believe that there is no point in this. It was obvious, even at the reception, that the two have a special connection. Judging even by the lady's professionalism, it becomes clear that the emperor wants this maiden to stay with him forever. Approaching the first lady, whose name is Rose, the girl greets her by introducing her first and last name. She thanks her for coming to the tea party. Getting up from her seat, the beauty curtsies. It is an honor for her because in the end she was invited. The girl asks what she can call Mrs. Rosalind, so she immediately switches to another form of the name. Rose turns pink as if she suddenly felt sick or ashamed. She doesn't immediately understand what the problem is. Next to approach is Lady Towery of the baronial House of Kraus. She, like everyone else, expects a greeting. When starting to get acquainted, the girl does not lose sight of the beautiful hair decoration, which receives many compliments. When asking about the designer, the beauty wants to be introduced to him as soon as possible, if that is possible. Noticing another facial expression, as if the heroine was embarrassed, the secretary raises an eyebrow. Perhaps the lady simply made a mistake somewhere. Such compliments almost indicate that the words are untrue. The emperor had told the beauty earlier that she shouldn't say something banal, because it has too much of an impact. Over 5 years with His Majesty, the heroine was able to practice her compliment skills, but perhaps they are not suitable for ladies. Derek was the one who kept working. He had no right to rest while Rosaline was the one who rested. The king's attention is drawn to Barrett, who is chatting pleasantly with everyone else. He is not entirely pleased with this. The brunette raises his head, asking if he misheard or if the prince actually said something. Not wanting to disturb the secretary in any way, the blonde grabs him by the head, asking him to concentrate on work and not pay attention to the king. The man remains as interested as ever. He has set to work just like the servant, because there is work left for them to do. The strange thing is that even if a second ago all eyes were on the king, now the ladies couldn't tear themselves away from Rosalind. She is beautiful, but this is too much. There will always be too many questions because the hero cannot understand the woman. Even he himself cannot look away. Even just looking at the girl, it immediately becomes clear that there is something special about her that affects other people around her. Continuing her conversation with the ladies, the heroine notices that someone is watching her. At first it seems that it is His Majesty, so she turns her head. It seemed to be something that simply showed. The man was busy talking to Derek about the remaining business. Still, it was a feeling based on reality. Turning to the side, the maiden noticed Ella laughing with the others at one of the tables. The heroine hoped that they would never meet again. It was unlikely, but in the end it happened. Approaching the right table, the lady says how glad she is to see all those who took the time and arrived. Mistress Ella is as beautiful as ever. She says she has been praised because she looks exactly the same as usual. This is not true, because even a glance is enough to understand how diligently the girl was getting ready, probably since the very morning. The lady thought that this was the emperor's tea party, so she should put in more effort. When the young man heard this, he would be sad. The girl has been completely misunderstood, but there is no longer any desire to listen to this. Rosalind turns and leaves to talk to the others. Approaching her table, the lady pulls out a plate of orange pudding and offers to try it. This is His Majesty's favorite dessert, but for some reason everyone, without exception, asks if Barrett likes the pudding. The girl freezes. She would like to fall into the ground because of the shame she feels, but this is not given. They are not interested in the emperor, but in her. Waving her hands in agreement, the lady assures that she likes it too. It's worth trying to understand the taste. Everyone who has managed to get a portion is amazed at how wonderful it tastes. If they need more, they can always ask. The woman standing next to her doesn't believe this is possible. She was afraid it wouldn't work, but she can't believe this is Rosaline's first tea party. The heroine was on top because she was able to take care of everyone around her and was quite polite. The only one who was dissatisfied was Paulos. Rosalind is in the spotlight not because she is good, but because she is next to the emperor, and for her this is a fact. A place with the emperor had always been for Ella, and even after everything that had happened, she still believed in it. Watching the man leave the room, the lady realizes that if they are left alone, everything will surely change. Going outside, the blonde breathes in the pleasant air with his free chest, which cools his consciousness a little from the inside. Derek tried to stop the prince because of the amount of work, but he promised to return back pretty quickly. The brunette is an excellent secretary and someone who will come to the rescue, but there is still something missing in him. Rosaline was always the one who cared much more. She kept track of the amount of work and made time for tea and rest. The lady made sure that the man did not experience much stress and remained in good shape for the rest of the tasks. The girl worked with the hero for only 5 years, but already managed to get to know him inside and out. Such a valuable person should not be fired. It is necessary to come up with a good reason to stop Barrett. The girl is not interested in jewelry, clothes, or shoes because she believes that these are unnecessary things. A more useful gift would be a plot of land. The land will bring profit and benefit, so it would suit a secretary. The thoughts are interrupted by someone's voice. The blonde has come to greet the son of the empire in person. Curtsying, the maiden closes her eyes, smiling slightly to inspire at least a drop of trust. Noticing the strange expression on his face, the lady realizes that she is most likely not remembered. She introduces her first and last name again. The heroine is a close friend of Beria, and they saw each other at the last tea party when she suddenly became ill, and they left the lookout. The only thought that flashed through her head was that the lady remained on the Empress's side, no matter what. If it's not a friend, it's strange why she's acting like this. Rosalind is in the banquet hall now, so there's no point in being in the courtyard. Bowing her head, the blonde admits that she went out to get some fresh air and accidentally got lost. Kahir was a tyrant and still hasn't completely corrected his mistake. But he's not ruthless towards women, so he'll help a lost lady. Without showing any signs, the guy turns around and leaves. This is the lady's own mistake, and since she did it, she should admit it and solve it herself. The blonde looks away in surprise. She is shocked by the behavior that has appeared in Kahir's new life. You can't just let the young man go, because they are destined by fate. His Highness must love the heroine at all costs. Clenching her hands in anger, the lady thinks only that all this happened because of Rosaline. She will be able to kill the girl as soon as the opportunity presents itself. A few seconds later, the lady doesn't even have time to come to her senses because there is a sword at her throat, pressing down on her. The girl is surrounded by several more knights. It is as if they have chained the beauty in a circle from which it is impossible to escape just like that. Asking in a menacing voice what it was, the blonde frowns at the girl who tries to leave, saying that she did nothing. An unexpected, unspoken anger appeared in her thoughts, which she couldn't help but get rid of, even if the lady continued to deny everything. The prince's feelings could not fail him just because of what had happened. He was determined to see the matter through to the end. The timid girl has the aura of a vicious killer, as if she had done something like this before. It would be possible to simply kill her, but that would not work. Previously, the emperor would not have even thought about it, but Madam Secretary asked him not to do this. Turning to one of the servants, the young man orders that Rosalind be called from the hall as quickly as possible. The knight rushed to help, running after Rosalind, who asked in surprise what had happened, since nothing had been explained to her. The whole point is that His Majesty drew his sword right in the garden, as if there was some good reason for it. The lady's eyes widen instantly. She is truly worried about the man, like no one else, without realizing it. Without listening to anything else, the lady suddenly jumps up from her seat to run to the scene of the incident. It was hard to believe that the man had drawn his sword. Perhaps it was an attempt to attack the king, which could have been successful. The guy will be fine, because the beauty promises to take care of it. She can't forget what would have happened to her if all this were not true. Continuing to run as fast as she can, the heroine promises that she will do anything for the emperor, no matter what. When the lady found out that she was in an affair, and when all the bad things happened, she did not cry because wasting tears was a luxury. If you compare the new and past lives, then everything was great, so there was no reason to complain, because there was even plenty of love. Sometimes Rosaline thinks that there are precious people around her, ready to save her at any moment. In any case, this is not the real world. However, for some reason, everything has changed now. The heroine is uneasy in her soul, precisely because of Kahir, to whom something could have happened. I want to scream out of despair, because His Majesty could be in danger or receive some more serious injuries. Finally reaching the palace garden, the lady notices a man in the distance, so she joyfully calls him by name to attract his attention. The young man turns around but doesn't have time to say anything, precisely because he rushes forward and hugs him. Breathing heavily, the beauty presses herself closer. She really couldn't bear it if something did happen. In response to the question, the man assures that he is fine, but notices traces of tears on the secretary's face. A phase begins that will only get worse. The hero picks up his sword from the ground, getting back into position. Turning to Rosalind, the blonde quietly asks who made her cry so much. The girl almost never cries, because this had never happened before, but now someone did it. He must be killed. There is no point in lying, and even Barrett herself understands this, even if she cannot say that everything happened because of the prince. Leaning even closer, the blonde asks once again who it was. He will have to find out for himself no matter what. The topic changes as Paolo speaks up. Deva asks what's going on because she doesn't want Ella to get hurt. The maiden must be furious since her voice has become hoarse, so adding fuel to the fire, the hero says that the lady was plotting to kill him. The lady speaks up again, screaming at the top of her lungs about how she would never dare do something like that. Turning back to the hero, the secretary quietly asks for clarification and receives exactly the same answer as before, which infuriates her. Apparently the lady had her eye on the Empress's position, but failing to get it, she decided to kill His Highness. Mistress Ella should have at least respected and appreciated His Majesty, but in the end, it didn't happen. It's a misunderstanding, but no one listens. No longer prepared to listen to the empty sound the maiden makes, the heroine swings her arm and delivers a resounding slap. Leaning closer to Ella's ear, the girl menacingly says that it doesn't matter whether she is the boss or not. If someone lays a finger on His Majesty, she will not forgive him. Pushing Paulos away from her, who falls to the ground, the girl clenches her teeth in anger to keep from yelling at her. Approaching the man, the lady apologizes for the scene, saying that he can give such a punishment that will be correct by his standards. As expected of the secretary, there is no mercy for her decision to violate the emperor's safety with her presence. Today is Rosaline's day anyway, so we can leave it. There will be no murder under any pretext. Jumping up from her seat, the blonde calls out to His Majesty. The misunderstanding needs to be resolved, because the beauty has decided that she wants to kill Rosalind, not Kahir. Even if the lady is the secretary's friend, even the king's patience has its limits, he's not going to listen. No longer paying attention to the maiden who remains sitting on the ground, the couple slowly leaves the royal gardens. The heroine will never give up. In the end, it will be Ella who will be next to the man, and no one else. The owners, who had left the guests without any reason a little earlier, arrived again in the hall of the estate. The daughters of the aristocrats immediately surrounded the girl from all sides. They began to say something, not allowing others to finish. The woman standing in the corner, smiling, is trying to show with her appearance that you just need to behave exactly the same as before. The lady apologizes and says that she shouldn't have left anyone, but it was her mistake. It's understandable since the secretary is a busy person. The girl tries to smile so as not to arouse any suspicion. She would like this to continue forever. One of the guests comes up to say how much she enjoyed the conversation. Anyway, it's time to go, despite the fact that they enjoyed their time here. Others say that the lady has already become a legend because of the way she handles all her work. The king, sitting at the table, looks around at his secretary. He is incredibly proud of what is happening. Finally, it's all over, but the lady who came to the etiquette training only says that it would be possible to arrange something like this at least once more. The woman says that she has been to many events, but this was the first one where there was such a joyful atmosphere. Usually at such tea parties there are a lot of rumors and calm, but today everyone tried their best. The girl was praised, but she was still not sure that His Majesty would allow them to have tea again. Leaning closer, the lady reveals a secret. Whatever the heroine asks, the emperor will fulfill it. Such words seem frightening and a little funny. In her right mind, the maiden could not ask for what she wants. It would be nice, of course, to do something like this at least once more, but no one promises, even though the lady believes that it will happen. Knocking on the king's office, Rosalind hears that she is invited inside, so she goes in and closes the doors behind her. The tea party went off splendidly, and the ladies liked the maiden, so there was no problem. Now I would like to say something else. His Majesty does not like noisy events, but the aristocrats liked the desserts too much, so we can do all this at least once more. Looking into the guy's eyes, the lady quietly asks if she has the right to organize the event again. Silence means that the young man is against it. It becomes obvious that Baroness Flint was very wrong when she said that she knew everything. Finally nodding, the man agrees. It's hard to believe that this is true. If Barrett wants it, then of course she can do it exactly as the beauty wishes. She has every right to do it. The thoughts are interrupted by another question. Rosalind still hasn't answered what was asked earlier. Not long ago, a guy asked who made a beauty cry. He doesn't even know what he did, but he wants to find out in the end. Slamming his hand on the table, the blonde once again gets angry, asking, "This again?" To which he is told that there was nothing special about it. The man had already explained more than once what exactly he was going to do to the person who made Rosalind cry, because it was unforgivable. The lady is not going to tell, because she cried because she was worried about the prince, so the reason is that a speck of dust got into her eye. The blonde grins. He is not feeble-minded, so he recognizes a lie a mile away. When a girl lies, she bites her lip, and of course, she did it again. She went completely silent. The young man is tired, so he leaves. He will find him and still do badly, but this will not happen because it is the king himself. The aristocrats were not tired of daily conversations, so nothing moved from the starting point because it was important who would support the emperor. Compared to the emperor, the empress's power is very small, since this is a position that is appointed by the head of state himself. If the aristocrats cannot get close to Kahir in the future, they will act through his wife, who will be weaker in spirit. His Majesty needs an independent woman who will take care of everyone around her. In the original story, kind and gentle Ella was dependent on Azella. She was constantly plotting, and when His Majesty was in danger, she did not help and became only a burden. In the end, Kahir almost died, but it was all compensated by the love they had for each other. With Rosalind's arrival, the situation changed dramatically, but even the main character herself had no idea how much. If you look at it that way, then Mrs. Floria from this family was the most suitable candidate. However, during the last tea party, the maiden couldn't even choose a dessert, let alone political issues, so the lady raises her hand against it. The aristocrat who stood up asks to express his opinion and not just say what is wrong and what is right. For a future empress, it is not the birth that is important, but the character. It does not matter who she is if the lady will become an excellent ruler. The jury must also pay attention to this criterion, so the lady proposes to include an independent priest from Verlos on the commission. Pashida, hearing the conversation begin, orders everyone to remain silent, asking the secretary whether Antony himself agrees. The heroine hasn't asked yet. This is all because the opinion of Aethius's subjects is undoubtedly a priority. By using a priest from another country, the beauty not only stopped the nobles who were going to bribe the jury, but also helped to enlist the support of other nobility. The opinions of others are no longer taken into account because it is obvious that everyone agrees. For the first time, this selection will be fair. Turning to Rosaline, the Count asks if she can settle the matter with the priest from Verlos herself. The answer remains, of course, yes. His Highness will be pleased with this decision, although he himself does not know it. He is in the study, asking where Berit is. The lady repeatedly said that she was participating in a meeting of aristocrats, and for some reason she might be delayed. The lady had only left an hour ago, but why were they talking for so long that they were starting to drag Rosalind into this abyss? The man had been vigilant before, but Derek felt like he had become more worried lately. For some reason, the young man is constantly angry for no reason. He himself noticed that he has a similar problem. The way people look at the secretary, and the way she looks back, of course, does not please the young man, no matter how he looks. It is unpleasant for him. Addressing His Highness, the secretary asks if he knows what is being discussed at the meeting, to which he receives an ambiguous response. It was about choosing a candidate for the wedding. The man did not say this because he thought that everything was known and did not bother anyone so much. Rosaline hasn't been able to talk about this topic almost every day for weeks now. They just won't calm down. Things won't go this way. The blonde loses his temper and angrily slams his hand on the table, shouting that the selection must be completed in a week. The heroine also fell into a stupor. In a week, this is unrealistic, unless the prince has a secret chosen one or someone who is considered special. That's why the young man had a tea party. The pieces fit together in his head, forming a picture that clarifies the situation. Now it all made sense, even to Derek. No matter what he did, he never got the looks Rosaline got, or any praise. 5 years ago, a spark ran between these two which flared up, but no one knows if it has died out. Lighting up with joy, the beauty begins to almost jump, asking who exactly this girl is. The man doesn't know either, because he can't divulge unconfirmed information in order to save his life. His Majesty is not the kind of person who chooses a bride on a let-it-do basis, because he literally creates problems out of thin air. There is some kind of turmoil in the office again. A scam involving land for construction has been discovered. Land reform must be carried out urgently. Arriving just in time, the girl walks in from the doorway, starting to talk about how building the temple is important too. However, she needs to be told something else. The man ordered the selection of the Empress to be carried out within a week, which seems absurd, since even the jury has not yet been formed. Derek told everything, but the choice of a partner is really very important, because you can't leave everything to chance. It's all obvious. But it turns out that since the start of the selection process, the 3 finalists have still not been determined. For this purpose, a priest from Verlos was called, but the marriage is not concluded for love, so the applicant will not be able to advance with any of the nobles anyway. All nobles are just pawns in the hands of the prince. He can skillfully manage the state, foreseeing their every move. The Empress is not a useless decoration. She must be the Emperor's support and his mainstay in the struggle for power. If you choose your future wife according to this principle, His Majesty will simply have no one to rely on in difficult times. A person must have someone from whom he receives support or someone in whom he can find his happiness, so this remains a question. Rosalind can't even hold back any longer. Tears are streaming from her eyes, which are already the 2nd time in the last week. Virgo will definitely find a way to find a worthy person, but at the same time she still cannot stop crying, causing questions from the interlocutor. For some reason, the girl can't stop crying no matter how hard she tries. There's no more strength left, not even a single one. Turning again to the girl, the hero asks who it was that made her cry and suffer so much. Looking into the eyes of his acquaintance, the young man seriously promises that he will bring that person and lay him at the heroine's feet. The bad way is to do nothing about it in the end, but as practice shows, it is better to do nothing at all. That's not the problem. Rosaline feels helpless because she doesn't know what she should do to tell. Switching to a scream, the beauty still says that this is all because of the prince. Last time, it was also because of him. The girl was worried. She was worried about what might happen, but she couldn't explain it. Rosaline doesn't know the man well enough to be so worried about any security he might provide for himself. At some point, the conversation took another wrong turn. The selection of the Empress was too important for the girl. If this is so, then everything becomes clear. There is no point in refusing the selection, so the young man will participate. The council must be convened right now to finally get things moving. Now relief came. His Majesty did not give up his own happiness. Apparently, the aristocrats are in such confusion that they themselves cannot decide how to decide on the candidate they have put forward. Everyone knows, but no one is satisfied with the only possible option that exists and has been proposed. This is the first time in history that an emperor has taken part in the election. He came to help. The man is not going to put pressure on anyone because in any case the final choice will always be the most important one. Usually the empress is chosen according to a scheme. First, the jury chooses only 3 candidates for the final, then the emperor's mother and he himself choose 1 candidate each. If their preferences coincide, a new empress is born, but if not, then one becomes empress and the other a concubine. The emperor said he was washing his hands of it, which means he leaves the last word to Azella. Everyone knows her character, so it's worth clarifying. Most likely, it means that the blonde will agree with the Dowager Empress's choice, whatever it may be. This is not true. If a man washes his hands of it, it means that, in all fairness, Azella will do the same. The final word will be given to the people, even non-aristocrats, so that everyone can choose their chosen one. The most important quality of a girl on the throne is trust and recognition from her subjects who believe in her. The man asks Rosaline to explain. All this means is that they will give female candidates the right to vote in the election of the empress. The only one who understands the king is the secretary, who is different from those who sit at the table. This is how the elections will become independent, so no one will be able to push through their favorites. This is how it will all happen, so the daughters of the aristocrats will also participate, since all girls who have reached marriageable age are obliged to do so. This means only one thing, that now everyone is on their own and nothing will work out. Kahir is a fair man, so he wants to give everyone a chance. Raising his hand, one of the dukes asks what should be done with the daughter who is already married. Girls married do not participate because the man also values goodwill. He wants everything to go perfectly. Turning to Rosalind, the young man asks that her family also take part. In their family, there is only the main character herself. The virgin cannot agree to go out on the bloody battlefield. She is obliged to regulate the selection process because the girl is a secretary. Preferences can be exceptions, and even if it is unfair, it still doesn't matter. Leaning closer to say something, the young man evokes surprise and reaction on the faces of the aristocrats. The hero asks to play along. He doesn't want anything, but even if someone else is the empress, she should learn from her. His Majesty walks away, closing the door behind him. No one knows what he has planned. Looking out the carriage window, the lady sees the excitement. Because of the selection, all the girls who have found love are rushing to get engaged. Barrett's family is also required to participate, so Roy was the first to know that his sister was required to participate in such a selection. It is not enough for the tyrant that Rosalind works for him, so he wants to make her an obligated wife on top of all this. The thought alone is scary, but some who have found their chosen ones are no longer participating. The girl can try to do the same. The guy has a lot of good guys among his friends. They can help him meet them and chat. One of the most suitable would be a man only 5 years older. He is a bank clerk and also the heir to a wonderful land. Obviously, the brother doesn't like his sister's participation in such an event, so he behaves this way. The girl did come to rest. It was true, so there was no point in continuing to sit at home. The guy suggests inviting his friend home, but then says that they can meet tomorrow too, which suits the secretary. Tomorrow will be the day of the attempt. Roy runs from the room, almost humming with joy. The morning came rather quickly. The girl arrived densely, ready for the cafe where they were going to meet. The lady is made to wait, so somewhere in her mind she has already subtracted -10 points from the score of the one who was supposed to arrive. The maiden woke up before dawn and made too many preparations without even having breakfast, and received absolutely nothing in return. Already getting ready to go home, the lady sighs. A man will not suddenly become punctual after the wedding because people usually do not change. His Majesty has changed, so, giving two a chance, the heroine waits for the guy who arrived and apologized for being late. His carriage wheel broke. The guy has a nice but not memorable face. He is different from the king, which is logical, of course. The couple understands each other well, but only according to the brunette's words. He speaks only about himself. Rosalind is lost in her thoughts about what the prince is doing, only hearing what is happening and her name being called. Apologizing for her absence and thoughts, the lady only hears that the guy was talking about himself. She is, of course, interested. Changing the subject, the young man asks how long the lady has been working with His Majesty, saying that the man has an unpleasant character. The hero dares to insult the king, knowing it is true, as if you were walking on thin ice. The man never shuts up, probably not even suspecting what he is talking about. He doesn't care anymore. He dared to talk nonsense, asking how the heroine could bear it, and she could not listen to a reminder of her torment. Over the past 5 years, the country has received a boost in development, all because of the emperor. By putting up a coin, the lady pays for tea and Viscount Line's dry cleaning. At first not understanding what is being said, the hero realizes when tea from a cup pours onto his head. Derek wants to rest, but he's not sure if he'll be okay after yesterday's incident. Asking if everything is okay with Rosalind, the hero hears that she has a meeting scheduled at the Sunset Ray Cafe at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. This incredible thing is annoying, so the young man shouts and asks with whom exactly, but then changes his mind. Thoughts are interrupted because the prince notices that the servant is tired. It is worth taking a break, at least for tea. The secretary can't believe that the gentleman is going to go to that very place, as if he hadn't said that he wouldn't do it. The blonde is going to go to the place where Rosalind will meet. He can't admit it, but it's true. They changed their clothes and went to the tea house. The man immediately rejected Derek's option because he wanted to be where Barrett was. The man doesn't seem like himself. He's obviously planning to follow Rosaline, even if he shouldn't. Noticing the girl, the young man talks about it, but his interlocutor asks him to be quieter because they just came to drink tea. The man seems to be late, but after a while he finally arrives. He turns out to be quite an attractive person. Not daring to turn around to avoid being noticed, the blonde shouts that it is not true, adjusting his voice. Calming down, the hero simply listens to stories that seem endless. The boy talks about himself. Listening to the secretary's answers, the guy understands that she is bored with him. She is not interested in the one sitting right in front of her. He is pulled out of his thoughts about the beauty by a conversation that has taken a wrong turn. The young man hears that His Majesty is a tyrant. Quietly watching what is happening at the table, the couple hears that the lady is paying for tea and a suit. After that, there is tea on his head. The blonde can't help but let out a light laugh. Hearing someone's voice, the maiden turns around and sees the emperor. She wasn't imagining it, or was it just a dream? Turning around, the lady comes closer to the blonde man, who smiles easily. The girl tries not to call the man by name or status, in order to simply ask what he needs. Turning to the guy, the brunette tries to find out who he is but gets nothing in response. He becomes interested in something, so once again the young man turns to Barrett. Trying to ask something, the hero switches to light flirting. The lady is so beautiful that the question flies out of his head. The hero asks to be sincere. That tyrant she has been working for 5 years, perhaps she really likes him. Usually the emperor asks if he hates him, but this time for some reason everything changed. Line jumps forward, screaming about how absurd this is. You want to shut him up so he doesn't dig his own hole. The blonde comes closer, asking if the young man works at the bank. It is already clear how this will end. Turning to Derek, the hero asks to find out more about the Horsehoof Bank. This is definitely not allowed because this bank illegally issues loans. If he closed shop now, it would turn the whole country against the emperor, even though the brunette had agreed to do it. Trying to ask who he is, the guy shuts up because he is harshly shown to shut up. He is glad to meet him, but still, it is time to go. After the interlocutor quickly disappeared, the hero again turns to Rosalind, asking her to answer the question. The guy is interested in knowing, so he asks, but he is afraid of the answer that she doesn't like the king at all. Turning away, the young man convinces the secretary that he is no longer interested. This takes on new dimensions. Turning again to Barrett, the gentleman asks to begin preparations for the selection, and for the girl to be even more beautiful than today. The girl is already ready, so everything is about to start, just in time. In any case, the heroine does not intend to become an empress, but her character alone is enough to win. Looking around, the lady asks how they were going to return, because there were no guards or carriage in sight. About to say something else, the lady buries her nose in the young man's back, almost falling to the ground. The man grabs Rosalind by the waist to keep her from falling, but she again says that they are too close to each other. Even when he is completely alone, the young man is able to protect himself because he has a magic sword and is not a child. Lowering her head and drooping her whole appearance, the beauty intends to apologize, but in the end, nothing comes of it. The tea house was rented. That's why there were no people in the room, because the rent was too high. Gathering her thoughts, the maiden hurries after His Majesty, realizing that he certainly won't be able to cope without her. Azella was almost ready to kill someone. The young man decided to choose his empress without his mother's participation. The office door swings open with a loud sound, which once again proves the lady's spoiled mood. The Dowager Empress has finally arrived, but to avoid appearing rude, the hero simply asks what happened. His Majesty puts a lot of effort into the choice, so it is impossible to remain on the sidelines. It is a pretense. Cookies and tea are placed on the table to ensure that the conversation flows more smoothly, even in such a setting. You have to stay calm because there were no particular problems with the choice. These are problems that are not that difficult. Virgo has heard about proposed changes to the selection procedure that violate tradition. The choice must be impartial, so that no one can subsequently control the new queen. The man is clearly trying to get rid of the people, the beauty, but she is not even going to let him do whatever comes to mind. Apparently, the heroine can't wait, since she came running herself. The competitors must choose the future empress themselves. Everything has already been decided, but the right to choose belongs to the woman, not the man, so we must not forget about the order of Etheus. This is not true, but the young man did forget to repeal the law, which he now continues to break. What the empress needed was the choice of 3 candidates, and the final choice was left to the elders. If the king refuses, then the lady will have to act, because aristocrats value this tradition. Then everything is fine. Eventually, one of the elders will be a priest from Verlos. By trying to smile, the lady does not show her anger just because of what happened. In this case, she will leave. The prince doesn't intend to go too far, but he can't allow the queen to do the same. If it comes to that, you can persuade others to the truth. Derek's suggestion doesn't sound so absurd. It won't work. The decision is made within a few seconds because the young man just needs a candidate who will be on his side. The queen doesn't even care about Antony. She can bribe even him and then finally put an end to everything. Turning to one of the maids, Azella asks to notify Count Magnus so that he can meet her before lunch tomorrow. Everything is decided. For some reason, His Majesty sent a modest telegram. There are still 4 days until the selection, but he has already called the lady. There is no choice anyway, because you have to go after all. The man ordered to do it immediately. Looking into her daughter's eyes, the mother once again says that she does not want her to become empress, because she could be elected. The girl smiles, trying to soften the subject. She is only a candidate, but there are many more beautiful people in the world. There is no one sweeter and more beautiful, Miss Barrett. Everything will be fine, but only if the lady lives an ordinary life. Hugging the girl, the missus asks her not to make efforts so as not to become an empress, and not to lose this path. The lady has been sitting in her estate for hours now in complete silence, surrounded by several maids. Unable to bear it any longer, the lady stands up and asks about the count. She is told that Magnus left yesterday, so this is not the best answer. Already waving her hand, the lady is stopped. The count has finally arrived, which saves the maids once again. Smiling, the lady asks to be shown to the living room. She will arrive very soon as he enters the estate. Entering the office, the heroine smiles so hard that all the insides clench. They haven't seen each other for a long time, so there is something to talk about. Sipping some tea, Azella asks about Garrison, who should have graduated from the academy by now. This is to keep the conversation going. Magnus immediately understands where this conversation is heading. Surely the lady will offer to arrange her son's fate. But for what price? Thanks to the queen's efforts, the boy is doing well. She is always happy to help, although it is not entirely selfless and not entirely true. Bowing his head, the brunette promises that he will do everything that is necessary, if only the heroine needs help. The guy's words are like balm for the soul, but when it comes to selection, this is the speech that is needed. Derek reported almost immediately what was happening. The Empress had met with Count Magnus. The young man thought that he was sitting in his lands and keeping a low profile, but as it turned out, this was not entirely true. The man recently returned to the capital. As it turned out, this happened in order to make the necessary connections for his son. Everything falls into place. The woman met with the right people to influence the selection of the Empress. Derek understands at a glance. No matter how much the palace wants to do everything honestly, the lady needs her own people who will lead her back to power. Remembering Ella, the young man understands that even meeting her was definitely somehow connected with all of this. The report on Mrs. Paulos was already prepared, but Derek has been too busy with Rosalind lately. The girl's place is still empty. Looking at how the man was lost in thought, looking at the secretary's place, the brunette sighs because this has been going on for several days. It is not the first time that His Majesty withdraws completely into himself. He misses the one who has gone home. By forcing Derek to report now, the Emperor is preparing to listen to everything that is said. After the secretary arrived back at the castle, she was almost immediately met by Rui, who came running. Looking at her friend, the lady clarifies what happened. His Majesty summoned the beauty to the palace by urgent telegram. Obviously, the girl doesn't know, so she assumes that someone was expelled or that they just had new problems added to them. The bank owner also becomes an agenda, and it is true because he is in prison, but that is not why the girl was called. The Dowager Empress changed the protocol for selecting a girl wife, but at this point the hero interrupts Rui, promising that he will tell the rest himself. Curtsying, the maiden asks forgiveness for arriving so late. She is there. Clearing his throat a little so as not to get caught up in the lady's beauty, the guy says that the greeting is accepted. Listening to the following orders, the maiden only hears that she is asked to win by any means and become empress. This is no longer a joke. Kahira needs the lady very much, and therefore she will become a trusted person. All the power that others dream of will belong to the girl. The cream of society will also be at the feet of the heroine. Rosalind will be able to live in prosperity and near the king, who himself, it seems, does not understand what he is telling his own secretary. Noticing the strange emotions of sadness, the blonde tries to understand what is happening. Maybe she doesn't like it, so she tries to get something else. If you think about it, Derek said that he had to give Rui the best offer, which indicates its importance. Understanding what is going on, Kahir asks if there was such a reaction because he did not propose to her. Asking her not to worry, the hero promises that he will gather his strength and make the most luxurious proposal in her life. Understanding why something like this is suddenly being offered is absent. He is in a good mood. As it turns out, it's all because of Azella. They can't sit back and let a woman's man come to power. The young man's wife must be someone he trusts. Rosalind has been with him for 5 years, so he has had time to assess her abilities. If it is Biret, then there will be no problems. The hero does not want to let go of such a talented and valuable person. Kahir says that the lady is fit to be the empress even if there is no other way. Even Derek noticed that it was ambiguous. The situation was pressing, but the king was too persistent. First, the emperor hired the beauty as a secretary, and now he wants to do it as an empress. As soon as the maid leaves the door, she is immediately approached by the maidens, who knew that His Majesty is a monogamist. The man continued to insist that he would not marry, and it was all because of Mrs. Barrett. One of the maids told the others what the prince had personally said when he had looted his office. Everything became clear. The hero fell in love with Rosalind at first sight and watched her. Most likely, these were just pleasant rumors to influence everyone else. Trying to keep up with the wave that literally covered the girl, she simply backs away to get away. Even if the emperor wanted to stop the Empress Dowager as quickly as possible, it did not mean that such methods had to be used. The castle could only be reached at night, so Ella greeted Azella as she passed by, removing her hood. The next to take off his hood is Magnus, who has also arrived at the castle to discuss the future strategy that is being used. The woman smirks and points to the sofas opposite hers. She is starting to get tired of what is happening, so she wants to win. The heroine apologizes for all the mess, even though Paulos says it's incredibly beautiful here, which is a lie. Looking into the girl's eyes, the woman asks if it is true that Kahir still excites her heart, knowing the answer perfectly well. Love gives terrible power. This girl is smart and naive, and that time at the ball she did not show any excitement and looked collected, which proved something. Even if the girl simply followed all the instructions, she is still a smart child who can do something worthwhile. Looking at Ella once again, the lady only says how much she likes her. She will be able to help the king. Lowering her head, the blonde speaks of the honor that belongs to her if she helps. Everything will be in the best possible way. Either way, the Empress is Ella, not Rosaline, who has no right to think so. They came into the world together, but only one will be the main one. Arriving at the castle, the maiden immediately throws open the door to her room in genuine rage. The lady orders all the flowers to be left outside so that they don't bother her because there is no more room left. There is absolutely no room for anything in the large room, especially since the heroine starts to get a headache from such a sweet smell. Sitting down on the sofa, the girl exhales. Apparently, the young man decided to shower her with gifts, thus showing his serious intentions. Even if this is true, the heroine cannot be joyful. Sadness takes over the consciousness, as if something is still wrong. The Virgin understands that His Majesty needs her like no one else, but then she will have to forget about her personal life. The wonderful future she dreamed of will not happen. A man is the architect of his own happiness, so it doesn't matter how good the proposal is if she doesn't want it. The prince can't do anything. While discussing the proposal plan, the young man is interrupted. It is Rosaline, who asks for some time to talk for a while. The guy's mood suddenly rose. Even Derek noticed that it was all because Madam Secretary had arrived. Waving his hand to the side, the blonde promises that they will discuss everything else a little later, but he doesn't know exactly when. Right from the start, asking the girl if she liked the gifts, the hero receives a positive answer, but in fact she begins to hate them. It seems the young man quickly read her mind because he immediately says that he can't take back his words, so he's going to make her empress again. There is no truth in legs, so the blonde offers to sit down. Since she came, it means everything needs to be discussed. My neck is already stiff from looking up at the lady, so this is another argument why it's worth sitting down on the sofa. For some reason, the girl began to notice that no matter whether the man was cheating on her or not, she was undoubtedly weakening in front of him. The rumors had already been spread. This was done in order to maintain the legend, but the lady still asks what and how. The hero showered her with gifts even before the selection began. The heart already belongs to Rosaline, so the other girls won't go out of their way and will simply give in out of respect. Having finally decided to speak, the lady firmly announces that she does not possess the qualities of an empress. The order must be revised. Instantly lowering her head, the beauty expects a wave of anger that can fall upon her with quite ease. The heroine has all the qualities. Most likely, she just hates the emperor, even if she tries to say that this is not so. If it is not hatred, then the girl can take the place she promised. Everything can be done in the right way. Kahir can make people stop disliking him. It won't be difficult because the plan is already made. The man simply asked, not ordered. At first, thinking that this was just a way to defeat Azella, the young man was incredibly mistaken. For some reason, when it comes to Barrett, the blonde becomes so greedy, as if she already belongs only to him. Without giving him time to think, the hero again turns to the secretary, asking to listen to everything he has to say. Approaching the sofa, the blonde gets down on one knee, looking intently into the girl's eyes. He knows what to do. Without saying anything else, the handsome man first takes out a velvet box and opens it, revealing a beautiful ring. The girl almost backs away from the surprise. Rosaline must become his empress at any cost. Not fully believing and understanding what is happening, the lady tries to say something, but all attempts are in vain. Obviously, the stepmother's opposition was quite important since it was a request on her knees and not an order as from a boss. Anyway, it doesn't matter. This marriage is just to show off the imperial power as best as possible. The man asks if he can stand up, interrupting his thoughts. Nodding, the lady helps him up. Now that the young man is on the same level as the girl, he demands a logical answer. She must marry him. Looking at the box with the ring, the lady understands only one thing. She must change His Majesty's decision by all means. Trying to make arguments, the lady recalls her family of insignificant viscounts. They will not be able to provide due support to the state. The empress does not need education. On the contrary, it will be an obstacle to establishing order in the state. The last argument is that the man recognized Rosaline as someone he didn't like. This was said only because of her beauty, because there was no moment of hatred. The Empress has calmed down, but that doesn't mean that Rosaline won't be chosen. It's necessary to agree as quickly as possible, even at marriageable age. Moving the box forward again, the hero says only that such reasons are not the basis for the refusal that she shows. Becoming weak, the lady gathers the remaining willpower. It is important for the heroine to date, then get married and live happily and beautifully. Sharply agreeing to this, to start with something like this, the maiden freezes. She understands that then it is necessary to choose an empress from tomorrow. Not immediately understanding what it was about, the hero simply says that it was about their relationship and not someone else. In any case, it's worth a try. The girl's face turns red. It's obvious that she's being joked about, but it makes her feel uncomfortable. This would never happen. The man is devoted to his beloved, so he intends to do everything in the best possible way. Ella was a fatal love, even in the original, but Rosaline remained just an inconspicuous secretary. The lady still can't believe the sincerity of the proposal. She is under too much pressure, which seems unbearable. Turning to the lady to encourage him, the hero asks her to teach him everything so that he too can do everything well, even in love. It's impossible, because even Barrett herself has never been in a relationship. They will learn everything together, from scratch. The heroine herself does not notice how she is again drawn into this loop of strange events. The ring seems to beckon, asking to be put on her finger. There were definitely no other reasons to refuse. At such moments, you can't let the situation drag you into the abyss, but that's exactly what happened. Rosalind seems incredibly upset because it can be seen even on her face. The man acted too smugly. He did the wrong thing, but the reactions make the beauty doubt whether this is really His Majesty, whom she knows. Since the girl has already decided to agree, the blonde asks permission to put the ring on her finger. The nod becomes another answer to all questions. When it appears on the hand, slightly shining, as if it was in its rightful place, it still doesn't seem right. There's nothing more to say, but the lady still tries to say something. The hero kisses her hand, asking her to take care of him. He will do anything, but now even the heroine herself does not know what to do with all this. Derek is finishing up the preparations. All that's left for the proposal is the fireworks, and then everything can begin to go according to plan, just like the prince wanted. No longer looking interested, the blonde starts reading the papers, saying that he had already proposed a little earlier. It just happened when Rosaline came into the office to talk. All that work went down the drain. The man had prepared a wonderful plan for a marriage proposal that would remain in Etheus's history, but now there was no point in it. Before the heroine sees all this, the emperor orders everything to be removed from sight so as not to spoil any expectations or mood. Even the fireworks will have to be put away. Now it is not the most important thing that they were going to do, because they need to make new plans. Sitting in her room before going to bed, the girl examines the ring. She received it while she was confused, and now she must fulfill her duty. The girl should not have allowed this and should have dryly refused until the very end. In the end, she simply failed with everything that was possible. After something like this, you need to clear your head, so the beauty gets up from her seat and goes to the window. Opening the shutters, she looks into the distance. Of course, the lady did not expect great love in the future with her husband, whoever he was, but a political marriage is on a completely different level. Even the moon seems to resemble Kaisar, which only makes me even more angry, making me regret the way things are. Rui knocks on the door and the heroine lets her in almost immediately. She had a lot of work, so she didn't see Rosalind today. The girl has only arrived for a minute. She just has something to give the girl, and it turns out to be some strange smelling ball. Inside the thing were herbs that are supposed to help you fall asleep. If you inhale them, you can relax and sleep well, even if you can't. The joy is almost instantly reflected on the girl's face. She is happy that everything turned out exactly this way. The maid came only for this, but in fact it was the emperor who asked her to convey this. He wants the maid to get a good night's sleep before the election of the empress, which is scheduled for tomorrow. Looking at the confusion on the girl's face, Rui comes to the conclusion that she still doesn't understand anything, trying to sort out her own feelings. The girl makes cute eyes trying to ask to be told everything, so the maid gives in. According to her, His Highness is quite serious. The lady knows everything herself, so she interrupts the tirade before it can begin. She understands the prince's intentions, whatever they may be. The man even gave her a ring. His Majesty does not want to seat next to him a man of the living stepmother of the Empress who could govern the state through him. This is not what Rui wanted to say. The secretary is very good at her job but too stupid in love. The brunette understands that she needs to be taught everything. By inviting the lady back to bed, the lady promises that she will have a good night's sleep. She will always do a great job, no matter how it may turn out. While in bed, the beauty watches in her mind as the ship with her dreams slowly leaves the harbor and sails away somewhere into the distance. A brilliant idea comes to mind. Divorce is also an option that they have no right to exclude, no matter how difficult it is, and no matter how much it affects. For some reason, the beauty hadn't thought about it at all. The empire had long ago allowed divorce by agreement, which could certainly work. The situation is urgent. First, the couple will marry and reduce Azella's power, and then, after everything has settled down, they can divorce as if nothing had happened. Think of it as a simple job change. The secretary will become the empress, and after she completes the task, she will get her cherished simple life. Rejoicing in her intelligence and such a wonderful outcome, the lady falls onto the bed, smiling blissfully, because now she doesn't have to worry so much. After the beauty has thought productively, she can finally sleep and figure out what she will do and how to win tomorrow. From early morning, all preparations began to advance to the first stage of the elections. The girl got up too early to do everything, but she knew it would be good for her. She still can't believe that the cherished day has finally arrived. Before the whole operation begins, the lady decides to confirm her suspicions. Turning to Rui, she asks if she can see the prince before the start. You will need to choose a gemstone, and then perhaps you will be able to meet His Majesty. We are talking about an important event. Several servants arrive in the room, holding boxes. His Majesty has sent them all to do their job as best they can. Opening the lid, the lady sees a multitude of beautiful decorations that sparkle even without the sun falling on them. Last night, the Emperor and Derek arrived at the castle where they had been heading from the very beginning with Edwick, whom they had not seen for quite some time. The man asks for forgiveness, but also asks to notify about such an unplanned visit next time because it is a little scary. Letting the couple inside, the guy only steps aside, giving up this right so that they can finally find themselves in the shop. Stopping near one of the stands, His Majesty examines a variety of different decorations, which seem to hint at how they would look on Rosalind. Pointing to several others, the young man asks to pack them all. It is hard to believe that he did not select only a few ornaments to choose from. Asking who this special person is who will receive all the gifts, the young man only answers that it will be his empress. They have a different relationship with her. The elections haven't even started yet, but Edwick has outdated information. Everything has been decided long ago because the man has a chosen one. Of course, it will be Mrs. Rosalind, but so that he is not too surprised, the blonde hurries him, asking him to pass quickly. Knocking on the door, the ladies open the door, curtsying, greeting the son of the empire. She looks more wonderful than ever before. The girl stands up and looks at the man, who looks quite pleased with his work. There is a pendant around his neck. After all, ladies like simple things, so the prince didn't run to the jewelry store last night in vain. He chose this pendant himself, so it's doubly nice. The girl immediately realized that the king himself was looking at her, but it was his gaze that stopped on her neck. The man has been too generous with compliments lately. She is busy, but she still came early in the morning. The girl wasn't bored because she wanted to talk about something important. Calling Derek out the door, the man gets up from his seat. His Majesty said that the lady must become empress. She is not going to deny or refuse the position that she may receive, but this is also important. This role is very important, which is why only Rosalind is suitable for it. She deserves it more than anyone else. No one else is needed. Even the hero's voice drops after what he says, showing his true intentions. The guy is only concerned with the political side of the issue, but approaching it from a different angle, the lady asks if they will do what she asks for. Smiling, the blonde promises that he will do anything to please his chosen one. The virgin promises once again that she will become the empress and will do everything in her power. She will help the state. The heroine does have one condition, though. The hero is a husband who will fulfill any request, even a minor one, so he agrees to listen to everything. After the government is no longer an issue, Rosalind insistently asks for a divorce. This is the condition. The words hit him like a stone. The guy can't believe that he heard exactly that, not wanting to do anything so as not to interfere. As she goes outside, the lady tries to squeeze through the other girls who are crowded together. The fireworks in the sky looked amazing. It was the first time Rosaline had seen such beautiful fireworks on such a clear day, when it was not yet evening outside, to create the full atmosphere. His Majesty greets the assembled ladies with all his heart. It is not only for them, but Barrett did not understand this statement. Stopping the conversation, the maiden turns and continues to look at the sky, in which clear lights sparkle. The election of the Empress has begun, and they need to try hard. The knights are only glad that everything happened on time and they remained alive. The hero leans back in his chair. He can't believe that he was asked for a divorce because he can't imagine anyone else next to him. Derek interrupts all thoughts by saying that, as requested, the observers have arrived. There is no time left for reflection, but Kahir understands perfectly well that there will be no divorce because Rosalind will go down in history as an ideal ruler. The selection must prove everything, because with careful comparison with other ladies, the heroine will be recognized by people. The only person who can become an empress for the emperor is a girl he has liked for a long time. There will be no other thoughts on this matter. The role in selection is very important. Even if those who arrived do not find free time, it is still important. Asking to see the exam questions, the man holds out his hand to read each of the sheets of paper that are offered to him. This is completely unacceptable. It is impossible to assess the empress's knowledge in this way because it looks more like a fairy tale. The boy wants a girl of a higher level. She must match him, so the questions will be changed. Pulling a sheet of paper out of the table, the guy holds it out, saying that the questions should be exactly like this. There is silence in the hall. Quite a few girls have gathered, but they are all in anticipation, so they can't say anything. Nobody knows what the questions will be. No information was given in advance, even if it would have been quite helpful. If you look at it this way, all the ladies studied with different teachers to prepare, so most likely many will cope. First of all, we would like to welcome and thank all the ladies. Now they are here and everyone is happy about this event. The first question is the topic of the most pressing social issue of the empire at the moment. Such a question about the present state of the empire could not be singled out for ladies who are quite far from it. This is too much, but the assignments are still collected because no one asks the girls their opinion. The next topic to write about is a place in the capital to build a temple. It's too good a question for Rosalie, and time is running out. Turning her head after it was all over, the lady noticed Ella, who was watching the beauty intently. Paulos looks too calm, but it was known about her, too. Derek had said earlier that Ella had been taken from Azella. The exam was over. Moving on to the assessment, the young man asks to assess the work of other participants so that everything is correct. After this, participation in the selection will continue. The girl meets Ella's eyes. The aristocrats reading the other letters talk among themselves to collect their thoughts and choose the best job. It really is difficult to choose. The first thing they praise is Mrs. Rosalind, who tried her best. The girl smiles. She sincerely thanks for such warm words about her and her work. Ms. Ella's answer is also good. In the original story, she chose a different place, but it also turned out to be correct. The majority vote for Rosalind, which irritates the blonde who is sitting right next to her, watching the events unfold. The ladies are ready to hear the results. The man steps forward and takes out an envelope with everything written on it. The questions were really difficult, and even Barrett didn't expect them to do something like that. This is the Empress's selection, so the level is so high, but no one suspected that those who failed immediately left the palace. It's a pity, because the families have invested a lot of money in this participation. Trying to cheer everyone up, the lady says that it is a great happiness that such ladies are with them. It seems like His Majesty had a hand in everything from the exam to the elimination of the contestants, but now it's up to Rosalind to sort it all out. The girl is thanked personally for the works she wrote. The answers were correct and the writing itself was excellent. The lady's work was really amazing. The solution was great, so it will work. The girl is tired, so she goes into another room, but Ella pushes her right in front of her. If she wanted to talk, she should have done it with words. It seems like Paulos has an important conversation to have, but even if that's the case, she might come to her table for dinner. This may happen, but the heroine is not even sure that she will have time. By evening, everything was finished. Rui suggested that everyone go to their designated rooms. They can see each other later, but for now, Rosalind asks where her quarters are as if it matters. Smiling, the brunette offers to follow her. She knows where each of the finalists lives. The original story has changed a lot. Even if Ella continues to hang around the man, she is no longer the main character. There are still many questions. The lady does not understand who the guy is truly in love with and who will become the main companion. Opening the door, the lady steps inside and almost immediately freezes. She is in a beautiful room, namely the Empress's chambers. The first ever selection of Empress Etus promises to last only a week. Such an open method of election had never been carried out before. No one had the right to choose because it was left to the elders. First, an exam was conducted on knowledge of politics, economics, sociology, and culture in order to comprehensively assess the education of aristocratic women. After all this, it was time for the results. After the selection, there were only 20 ladies left in the castle who had not failed. Now they promised to have a dinner party, declaration, and finally dancing. Thus, everything will be assessed. Officials, elders, and the contestants themselves will select the 3 best maidens for this title. Then a jury of high aristocrats and the priest Verlos will choose from among them the empress who will be approved. The social ladies of Ethius were invited to judge. They were also present at the event, like everyone else. They will evaluate etiquette and also personal qualities. Of course, this is also quite important, as even Rosalind understands. Turning around, the first thing the lady notices is the right hand of Azella, the wife of Baron Varios, Emilia Varios. With a grade that will be good, you can spin around, so without worrying, the lady just starts eating. The missus says angrily that she seemed too pleased when she tried the food. It was simply too delicious. Before her debut in royal society, the heroine worked in the palace, so she still makes mistakes sometimes. She did not want to cause inconvenience. It was polite because even if Emilia was in a bad mood, she apologized. It could be understood, but the empress made it clear what needed to be done. Scooping a little of the food onto her spoon, the lady also tries it, and then covers her mouth with her hand in surprise because of the taste. It was an excellent taste, but even so, the Baroness herself made such a ridiculous mistake. If the cook learns that the aristocrat was so amazed by the taste, he will surely be in 7th heaven. This is the highest praise. Emilia can't help but notice that the young lady is diverting attention from the mistake. It's a clever way of conducting a conversation that reminds women with 20 years of experience. Doubt still creeps into the mind. Rosalind may be behaving in order to get good grades. Asking what is popular in social circles now, the lady immediately receives an answer from one brunette. It is about a product for hands to make them whiter and more beautiful. Looking at her hands, the heroine sighs. She has absolutely no time to look after herself because there is too much work. Getting involved in the conversation, the Baroness reminds us that every self-respecting lady should watch her hands. In the heat of her emotions, the brunette does not notice how she throws the fork off the table, only seeing the servant who promises to bring a new one. To attract attention, Barrett insists that it was her fork, and of course, it was also her mistake. They will bring her a new one, but for now the heroine apologizes for what she probably caused a lot of inconvenience. It was no help, because according to Rosaline, there was still much to learn and etiquette to be learned. The Baroness was known for her manners, so the lady asked for a few lessons. The interlocutor freezes, unable to find the right words, only nodding to express her agreement. Before leaving the room, Emilia, taking Barrett's hands in hers, says that they are also beautiful. This means a lot. A hard worker's hands deserve even more compliments than anyone else's because they do everything for it. Smiling and showing sincerity, the heroine once again thanks for such compliments that warm the soul. Sitting in the room, the lady cannot understand whether her opinion about the Baroness was true or not. She thought that she was hated, but it turned out that this was not so. After all the procedures and a hard day, the woman happily falls onto a soft bed in anticipation of rest. The only question that remains is who could have placed the beauty in the Empress's room. The one who could do this is His Highness. Saying this out loud, the lady hears the man's voice and jumps out of bed. The heroine blinks her eyes in surprise and looks at the guy sitting on the windowsill. The smile itself shows on the face. It is hard to believe that the beauty was waiting for the prince even after everything she said. Almost screaming in horror, the girl remembers that she is on the 5th floor. It was impossible to enter the door at such an hour, so of course Kahir climbed up the rope that was now dangling outside the window.